Yes, sir, I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Let's all bow our hands and pray. Katina mate, tenzi mwari baba tokutenda nechipo cheupenyu chamunotipa zuva nezuva. Tauya pamberi pechigaro chenyu chikumbira mutsa nerudo rwenyu nesimba renyu kuti zvese zvatichange tichironga pamusangano uno zvokuva zvinofamba kubudikidza nembiri yenyu. Tanamata tenzi kuti zvishiro zvedu zviri mumwoyo munozviziva chiita kuti zvikwanise kuzadzikisa. Tanamata tenzi ndosiya zvese nembiri yenyu inogara nokusingaperi. Amen.
Yes, thank you very much, Award. We are going to continue with the spokespersons. The first one will be Zoe Ousu from Ghana. Zoe Ousu, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You only have 1 minute to present your report. Zoe Ousu, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have
Hello?
only 1 minute.
All right. Okay. Can I carry on? Hello.
Yes, you can start.
All right. I Love Black People Ghana Chapter Weekly Reports, dated 8 October 2021. Week under review, first quarter of October. Second October 2021 to 8 October 2021. Summary of activities. We started our Saturday conference meeting by enjoying our spokespersons' reports on the week activities in our respective countries. This was accompanied by our honorable co-founder's speech, most Ambassador Christopher Mapondele. Our most edutainment Pan-African class and healthcare class session was delivered by Professor Dr. Terren Wright and Queen Mother Nana Ekuya and Zenzele, a traditional healer and founder of the Natural Path Holistic Wellness Center, LLC, respectively. We were glad to come to a successful end with our Pan-African class, which is awarding with certificates. Our regular Tuesday newsletters, which highlights on education, health, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, food, and accommodation, and other Black-owned and Black-friendly content, was enjoyed. Members were encouraged to submit their contributions on Thursdays for review and publishing in the newsletter. I Love Black People members were encouraged to follow, like, retweet, and comment on various social media platforms of the group. That's WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and the others. Our honorable ambassador and members were encouraged to embark on our group activities to help affect the mission and vision of the I Love Black People activities in protection against racism and xenophobia. Members and ambassadors are reminded to submit Black-owned, Black-friendly businesses to the group's website with format provided in our various groups. We join hands with our brothers and sisters all over the world facing any form of distress, xenophobic attacks, and racism with encouraging relief, hope, and love messages accompanied with some donations into the Haiti earthquake with the Guido Relief 2021 on our website. Please show them love in their distress and need by donating to the accounts. I Love Black People members, family, and friends are to use our emergency button located at the bottom left of the iloveblackpeople.com website in the heat, fight, or protection against racism and xenophobic attacks. wherever you may find yourself. Members who went against the group's mission, objectives, and goals were penalized and informed to stick to the group's mission, objectives, and goals, only if they want to enjoy their membership. Ambassadors and members in our country group made time to help all new members with their challenges with the weekly tax, and we encourage everyone to seek the clarification and assistance when needful. I Love Black People members, that's old and new, are once again encouraged to stick to the I Love Black People mission and contribute only to the fight against racism and xenophobic attacks. In our country group, members who weren't able to attend the Zoom conference call session on last week Saturday were encouraged to do so this time, and further recommend others by sharing the link to this Saturday's meeting. Quote of the week: powerful people cannot to educate the people that they oppress, because once you are truly educated, you will not ask for power, you will take it. John Henrik Clark, an American historian,
Yes,
professor, and a pioneer in
thank
the
you very
creation of
much,
Pan-African.
Zoe.
Thank you. I love Black people.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, we have Roland Garcia from Cameroon. Roland Garcia, can you hear us?
Yeah, hello? Yes, Yvonne.
Yes, Roland Garcia, we can hear you. You only have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Dear brothers and sisters, thank you. Thank you. Dear brothers and sisters, good evening. Thank you for being here to share a lot of people Cameroon weekly report. Date 8 October 2021, period under review from 1st October 2021 to 8 October 2021. A Zoom meeting was successfully held on last Saturday after preparation of the next one began. Moderator Yvonne Duchamp, town member and ambassador who attended the last call on review follow, then encourage everyone to register their attendance and take the opportunity on social media to protect Black people everywhere and anywhere against harm, humiliation, oppression, racism, and xenophobia. She moreover encouraged everyone to register their attendance on next conference call to be today on 8 October 2021, while sharing the link on which people can apply to become ambassador and call brothers and sisters to invite more friends and family members to join the movement. Keep it up, everyone, for identifying and recommending more safe places for Black people globally through technology, suggesting member and ambassador to submit Black-owned, Black-friendly business recommendation in 8 categories of economical freedom, independence of Africa. COVID-19 update in Cameroon. Confirmed cases of 95,399 with 1,517 deaths and a total of 469,341 doses has been administered. From Cameroon, there is Ambassador Roland Garcia. I am because we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roland Garcia. Up next, we have Oranima Samba from South Africa. Oranima Samba, can you hear us?
Yeah, good day. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you only have 1 minute.
Okay. Zimbabwe report. The 8th of October 2021, country weekly activity. On the 2nd of October 2021, the community had a dynamic Zoom meeting where our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mampondere, delivered a wonderful message. Also we had Pan-African classes with Nana Okwa Zenzele and Dr. Tyron Wright. Community members were encouraged to volunteer as ambassadors of I Love Black People. regular newsletter was shared, which highlights on our 8 essential categories, which are education, health, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, food, and accommodation. Social media accounts of I Love Black People was shared to groups, and members were encouraged to follow, like, and comment. Community members and ambassadors were encouraged to attend our online event on Saturday, which aim to build a global network to help and protect people from racism and xenophobia. In our group, community members were asked to prepare, write, and submit weekly reports. Our COVID-19 update in Zimbabwe group is coronavirus cases is 131,523. Death cases are 4,631. And recovery cases are 124,685. Reported by Chipo. I am because we are, from Orani Masamba. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Orani Masamba from South Africa. Up next, we have John Getichi from Kenya. John Getichi, can you hear us?
I hear you, Will. Let me, ladies and gentlemen, let me hear for you. And I share if you allow me to share that, can I share it with you?
You can present your report.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have on email. If you want me to give me to share with you, please.
Can you just read it?
You are the host.
Yes.
No. Can you continue so that I can? I have on the PDF on the phone. Please.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I have problem in network, please.
It's okay.
Can I share?
We are going to continue the call. Up next, we have Elijah Nyambuti from Kenya. Elijah Nyambuti, can you hear us? Elijah Nyambuti, can you hear us? Okay. We are going to continue with our co-founder, Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Sinclair Skinner, co-founder of I Love Black People, and just blessed to be here with so many beautiful brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora who are so concerned about one very specific thing, and that is protecting Black people from racism and xenophobia globally. I bring a message today just briefly because we're in the process of hiring additional folks to help us in this movement. Now, we right now are identifying people to be community, to do community organizing for us. And those folks are going to be very key in helping making sure the ambassadors and our members are properly coordinated and allow the opportunity to really reach their full potential. We have as a startup, again, let me just give some good background. I'm a mechanical engineer, as well as Mr. Amapandera. His background is in agricultural engineering, and we both attended Howard University, a predominantly historically Black university in the United States of America. So we came together to create a solution using technology. Now, there's people who use, politics. There's people who use a host of different ways. There's, you have religious groups, you have nonprofit groups, but we're a tech startup. So we're actually using technology to solve a problem that we've faced in dealing with white supremacist ideology for now more than 500 years. We're using technology to bring our people together globally, much like an example of it in the United States during American apartheid called the Green Book. And this book was a guide for Black people doing what they called Jim Crow segregation, which was like apartheid in the United States from the 1930s to the 1960s. And it identified safe places for Black people throughout the United States where Black people wouldn't be harmed and humiliated. Now, one of the misnomers or one of the misunderstandings of that guide is many people think it was a economic guide to somehow generate revenue in the Black community. And that's just not true. It literally was a survival guide. Black people were being murdered by Europeans. And again, if you really understand the United States, it's literally a European colonial settler colony, meaning it's much like Rhodesia was before the Zimbabweans defeated the Rhodesians, or South Africa or Australia. So this it's rooted in a very, colonial context of oppression. And that context allowed for literally centuries the indigenous as well as Black folks to be murdered and with no consequence. This guide allowed Black folks to identify places where they would be treated with dignity and respect. We as a community still are faced with many of these same problems of white supremacist ideology, the same problem of Black people being harmed and humiliated because of racism and xenophobia. And we're not waiting for someone to come save us. We're going to save ourselves. We're not waiting for legislation to change. We're not waiting for someone to decide that this is the wrong way to be. We're literally building a safety net, a network throughout the world of Black friendly and Black owned places in 8 key categories. Now, the reason why we pick businesses, again, is not always obvious. Sometimes people think it's, again, about somehow something to do with money. It really has something to do with us as people. With a business, these people oftentimes have the power to determine how people will be treated. There's no need to go for a vote or try to persuade. Literally, these establishments are already created and have a physical location. And if they are treating our people with dignity and respect, those people are a part of this network. So you could be in Denmark and you get sick and you're trying to find a place to be treated where you're not going to be harmed. We literally now have a way to identify it might be a Mongolian woman doctor in Copenhagen, where all the Black people in that community know that she treats them with dignity and respect. And now you have access to that information. So that's what we're doing. And that's why our focus is very like a laser. We oftentimes have people say, well, what about the environment? Or what about other issues in the world? There are so many issues and so many movements, organizations, and people working on them. We are very focused on a particular one, and that is racial profiling, meaning Black people being harmed by racism and xenophobia. If you're interested in saving the whales, I Love Black People is not focusing on that. And we're not going to focus on that. We're narrowly focusing on the 1.5 billion people in the world of African descent that are being targeted, harmed, and humiliated through racism and xenophobia. That in itself is a big task. 1.5 billion people globally, a problem that's been going on for at least 500 years. It's taking all of our abilities, resources, and time to make sure we effect an excellent solution for this problem that has yet to be solved. So for the other problems, that in no way diminishes the need for solutions for all these areas. It is not the focus of iloveblackpeople.com. Unapologetically, clearly, our focus is not people of color, it's not everybody, it's literally Black people, people of African descent globally, 1.5 billion people. And that's all of them. So that's the men, that's the women. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, it doesn't matter if you've never adopted a colonizer's religion and you have a spirituality based in our ancestors. All of us who are targets of this white supremacist ideology that's created a racism and xenophobia, we are creating a solution to address that. And let's be very clear, we're clear that race is a fiction. Race is not real, but racism is, and it's been used to kill, harm, and marginalize our people for far too long, and we've had enough of it. And we are putting, as much as we're being deliberately targeted, we are doing things deliberately to protect ourselves and our families and our communities. So this is not a movement just to be Black. This is a movement to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia, full stop. We invite all those who are super interested in affecting and being a part of that change. If that's not what you're interested in, if you thought this was a dating site, if you thought this was a chat group to complain and be a victim, if you thought this was something where we're going to be distracted by every current affair that comes up, if you thought this was a way to advance your political campaign, this is not the place for that. And we're very, very intentional and deliberate about the focus we have. We have a goal by 2030 to eliminate racial profiling. We're going to create the world where our prodigy, our children, will one day just think that racism was something made up. We are going to create the world because it's so unnatural. We're going to make a world that one day that our children will think these are just stories that we're telling them, scary to scare them, because it's unacceptable for us to live in this world with this this plague, this pandemic of racism and xenophobia. So we're asking for as many of our members and ambassadors to step up. And when we hire community outreach staff, we ask all the folks who apply to be a part of this to always come in as ambassadors. Our ambassadors are the most important part of this movement. They are the ones that have identified and found and verified places that are Black friendly and Black owned throughout the world in our 8 key categories. We literally created these 8 categories based on the Green Book. The original Green Book that Victor Green that I referred to focused really on accommodations, meaning places to sleep, places to eat, and transportation. We increased it to include education, childcare, healthcare, finance, beauty, as well as legal. Now, this is important because some people thought that it was just about traveling, but it's not. You could never, to be candid, we don't even promote people being tourists. We promote our people engaging each other constructively. I think Frantz Fanon said that if you go to Europe and you meet an African and he's a tourist, send them home. If he's a slave, free them. And if they're a traitor, you know what we do with traitors. The point was being made that no matter where we are, we should be doing something constructive for the elevation of our people. So in a very real way, we picked these categories, not just because of people traveling, But we identified traveling as just one vulnerability. The reason why traveling is problematic is because you may not know anyone around you. But that's when you're in a vulnerable situation. Well, there are other situations that you might be vulnerable in. As I referenced, if you're sick, you may not be traveling. You could be at home and you get sick with this coronavirus. And again, I often have people ask me, well, or say to me, well, is it man-made or is it natural? And I say man-made, meaning women would never participate in making something this wicked. No matter what it is, man-made or natural, it is a reflection of a very toxic world. And we need to be vigilant in protecting ourselves and our community from it. That being said, you could be at home and get corona. We want to make sure you go to a doctor that's not going to deny your service. We've had many cases like this in the United States where healthcare providers, it's not that they do something to Black folks, it's what they don't do for Black folks, which then allows them to continue to get sicker and sicker and die, and then we get blamed for our own death. So it's really quite problematic where you end up being the victim and the villain in the same movie. And that being said, we want to make sure our people, when they're particularly sick, no matter where they are, home or not, that they can identify healthcare providers that will treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve and make sure they get the treatment that they deserve. So much of our focus has been very narrowly on those issues of making sure that our brothers and sisters are treated with the way they should be treated. Also, as was brought up by one of our spokespersons, we've raised money to help out our brothers and sisters from Haiti. In the United States, you've seen the xenophobia where Haitian immigrants being whipped by government officials on horseback. I mean, with the same level of wickedness as we've seen in the history of the United States. We've raised now, I think, close to about $2,600, and we're going to be making a donation, and hopefully we're going to have one of our members, ambassadors from Haiti, on the call next week, Brother Ralph, and see if we can have him give some his insight on the issues that are happening. So we want to make sure that we're very clear that we're here to specifically address these issues of racism and xenophobia. We're leveraging technology. That's the background that we have an orientation. This movement is inclusive of all our brothers and sisters globally. It's not just about us being Black. It's about us being clear that we want to protect Black people. We know there could be Black folks who are poverty pimps exploiting our people. We don't want those folks involved. That's not what we're here for. We're here for folks who are really dedicated to making sure that Black people no longer ever have to be humiliated by the harms of racism and xenophobia. So with that, I want to take some questions. Those interested in the community outreach questions for those who just joined us for the first time to understand what our movement is about and how we do that. And you know what I want to also add, this was our first year. We started a Sirius XM radio show called I Love Black People on channel 141. Again, if you're very interested, we're going to have spotlights on our ambassadors and have them come on the show. We had a show where we had 3 ambassadors talking about some of the issues going on in South Africa, as well as in Haiti and the Congo, a DRC. So we want to make sure that all the resources we have are leveraged to elevate our members and our movement for the betterment of our community. With that being said, I'd be remiss to talk about resources, so let me talk about that briefly. One of the things that we've done, we're committed to making sure that no matter where our people are, that they have access to I Love Black People. So it doesn't matter, you'll never have to pay to be safe. So it's totally free and it will always be free. But we've been blessed to have some members who who have the means to support by being Prime members, by helping pay for the resources and expenses to provide this global network. And I just want to make sure I say thank you to them. And soon we're going to be developing a program for the businesses that have been recommended by our members and ambassadors to also become Prime business members. And these Prime businesses, we will have them pay a yearly subscription to be Prime members, Prime businesses. But these are businesses that have to already been identified as Black friendly and Black owned. And again, making sure that we have the resources to continue to build and develop our movement to fulfill our goal of 2030 of eradicating racial profiling of Black people. With that being said, please, Sister Yvonne, are there any questions? I don't want to take up too much time, please.
Yes, the first question is from Roland Garcia from Cameroon. He's asking, after recommending businesses, what happened next?
After you recommend businesses, we verify the information as far as the address and make sure the name and gather that information. And then on our developers on the back end, upload. I know y'all think that Sister Yvonne is a meeting convener, a radio host, but she's actually an IT professional and a database developer. So she actually, her day job is she's a technologist. So we have our small team uploading this information, and then of course we take that data and we put it on charts so you can see. Yvonne, do you have one of those charts where it shows the dots of all the different places that we've identified? Maybe you could share a quick screen just so we can kind of show that, or is that too weird? If it's too weird, tell me it's too weird. I don't want to do nothing too weird. Next time?
Yes.
You said
yes,
next time? Okay. Okay, so what we do is every week we have an update where we show you the businesses that have been recommended from the previous week. And then every month we show a demographic breakdown of these businesses and where they're located in the 8 particular categories. So the real importance is that we need to make sure that no matter where our people are in the world, how many businesses have been recommended, Sister Yvonne? About? In total?
We have about 40,000.
Yeah, so we have a little better than 30,000 businesses globally. So in the different categories, but I know that we always need more businesses like in legal, healthcare, and childcare. I think those are some of the areas. We have quite a few businesses in beauty, which is like beauty salons and barbershops. And we have quite a few businesses in restaurants, places to eat food, but we definitely are always in the need of more healthcare providers. It could be a doctor, that could be a nursing home, that could be a nurse, that could be any kind of clinic, therapist, mental health. And we also need legal, that could be a lawyer, a legal clinic that treats Black people with dignity and respect. And of course, childcare could be, again, a educator, it could be a childcare facility. These are the key areas that we need to make sure that no matter where our people go, they can live fearlessly and move about the world fearlessly as we deserve. I hope I've answered that question. If not, what do we have?
Yes, we also have Rahim Hamilton is asking, what is the next step after the call to become brand ambassador?
All right, so we have a link on our Facebook page. Our ambassadors, we have a profile page with some of our most active ambassadors. And so we have that page where you can see some of our ambassadors, the more active ones. And then we have the application that you can fill out. And then that application, the information is provided about, where you are, We ask you to support the movement and to, I think there's some books that we provide for you to read and information of the background on our movement so you understand, and business recommendations, how you do those things, social media contacts, and that's the process. It shouldn't, and then we have groups on WhatsApp, and I think this is something that's key to bring up. We have to develop our own social network. So we heavily depend on WhatsApp groups. We have ambassador groups, and our ambassador groups are broken up into the names of some of our heroes like Samora Michelle, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara. Those groups are Pan-African groups, meaning they have groups of brothers and sisters from all over the world mixed together. And then we have country groups. Because we have over, I'd say over 3,000 now ambassadors, WhatsApp only allows you to put about 250 people. And on the continent of Africa, this is some of the cheapest social media that you can use. It's WhatsApp, and part of that is it's more racism. The cost of data in Africa is higher than most places in the world. And that, again, is a way to hold our essence of people back using technology. So we have to be very clear that we have to come up with our own ways of organizing our people that don't use technologies that are controlled by people who don't have our best interests at heart. Technology is neither good nor bad. Technology is not going to save us, but technology is not the devil. We have to take all these tools and use them for our own liberation. So the ambassadors have their group and they actively are engaged every day. And we definitely need to come up with our own social media network that doesn't use a lot of data, but allows our people to connect, just as an added bit of information after Monday's debacle and shenanigans. All right, next.
Yes, the next question is from Tsepo Mutabi. He's saying, I don't hear anything about decolonizing Black mind. What are plans or tactics planned to decolonize of our Black mind?
Okay, I think that's a great question. No, we're not here to debate whose mind is colonized or not. There's probably plenty of places where you have philosophers and philosophy majors and people who want to talk about historical this and historical that. This is not that group. What we're here to do is specifically identify safe places for Black people where we won't be harmed by racism and xenophobia. The philosophers and debaters, there's so many groups out there where you could debate what colonization is, when it started, the specific day. People can show how smart they are by naming everybody that ever did anything. That's not this group. This group is literally a working group. We're literally not talking about just minds. We're talking about deeds. We want you not to say how decolonized. We want you to demonstrate it. And that demonstration comes through your work and your commitment to this very narrow approach. Let me say this again. This is no way the only way to help protect Black people. There are so many different things, but this is a way. And let me just tell you, we literally, as a team, wake up every day doing our best to do this, which is a lot. We're now at about over 100,000 members. It is a lot to maintain, organizing, and to keep this group focused literally on our mission to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. So as it relates to decolonizing minds, we think everybody should have a decolonized mind. And those people who have the patience to go through the debates and philosophy, we give them utmost respect. For us, we have a class every Saturday where we focus on healthcare at this moment, and we focus on Pan-African organizing. We literally want to make sure our people have the tools to literally help themselves in their community in this Pan-African context. That means we want them not to be sick. So if you have a mind that's totally decolonized, but yet you're not healthy, or somebody's trying to poison you and you don't know how to protect yourself, that's a problem. We have a healthcare class every week where we have a lecture and we have classes throughout the week talking about how to help that. We ultimately will have classes in each of the 8 key areas of people activity that we named: legal, healthcare, beauty, transportation, food, accommodation. All those areas, we will have a Pan-African class addressing those issues. But again, our focus is literally building, for the first time in the history of the world, a safety net for Black people, no matter where they go, a safety net, no matter where they go. We don't have a lot of time for debates and philosophizing. We got to get to work. We have a goal of having this established and built by 2030. That's not a lot. That's less than 10 years, that's less than a decade. If we spend our time, debating and philosophizing, that takes away the time we have to get the work done. So we're literally here for those who, how some people say they rather work smart than work hard. We're the believers that work hard. We think sometimes people who say they want to work smart might be just secretly lazy. We're here to work as hard as humanly possible to protect Black people from racism, xenophobia, by building a network of safe places and building a network of people who want to protect Black folks from racism. All right, what's the next one?
The next one is from Andrew Lifombo. He's asking, do we have a branch here in Zimbabwe?
Yes, we have how many? We have members from how many different countries, Sister Yvonne? About
almost all Africa.
No, I'm talking about the world. How many countries in the world do we have members? Please, we have a number. We have a database.
Yeah, about 60.
Now we have more countries than that. All right, so why don't you pull up I mean, that's not a good number, and that's just not true, first of all, factually. Yeah, we got to do better than that, Yvonne. This is a year of work. We can't be guessing numbers like that. People won't trust us. They'll call us liars.
Yes, there are about 57 countries.
All right, and are you looking at the demographics?
Yes.
And it says 57 countries?
I was looking on Nation Builder.
No, you do a demographic map every month. Go open that map up and read it right now.
Okay.
This information is not just, we don't do this just to do it, Yvonne. This is about how we organize our people. This is disappointing. We gotta be on top of this. So yes. Read the information. We keep this calculated every month. You don't have to guess. I don't want you to guess. I want you to say, I don't know. Let me pull up the document that I pull together every month. Now, what does that document say?
We have like the total members, it's 102,670 members. Then countries, there are 135 countries, and the financial members, there are 196. Active members, there are 7,394, and the businesses, there are 33,434, and the ambassadors, there are 1,265.
All right, those are the real numbers. And so going forward, If I'm on the call or not, I want you to have those numbers up. You literally said 57 countries. You literally said a number that was totally wrong, and it's a little embarrassing. We have to be sharp, and I'm saying this to everybody on our team, not just Yvonne. We don't play this. This is something we take very seriously. So again, it's already hard enough just to do this. We don't go around doing a whole bunch of philosophizing. We're literally trying to build something that's never been built before. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of dedication, and we have to be meticulous. We have to be methodical. This thing, and again, coming from a background as an engineer, we take this very, very seriously from a very logistical and a very systematic approach. So we definitely appreciate everyone's contribution from over 130 some countries. That's our reach, and we want to make sure we touch people in each one of those countries, in each one of those areas. We have to be very sharp on what we're doing. So what's the next question?
Yes, the next question is how can we get the I Love Black People t-shirts in Angola?
All right, so one of the things that we've started in a couple countries is identify places that make t-shirts locally. The cost of shipping t-shirts to different countries, especially in Africa, is very expensive. I think to ship one t-shirt just for the expense was like close to $70 some, and it took like over 2 weeks to get there. So we even sent stickers. It was very costly to send stickers, even within Africa. We have our offices in DC and our offices in DC, United States, and we have offices in Harare, Zimbabwe, in HICC, in the main convention center there. And we shipped just stickers, like stickers, like little bitty sticky things. And it took like 3 months to get to some of the different places, even within Africa. So we're identifying people, and we always are willing to take recommendations of people in these countries that actually make shirts, preferably, again, indigenous African shirt makers. If not, we want people who are Black friendly. Also, if you are, and let me just add this to it, and we're going to start talking about this more. If you have family members, if you live outside of the United States, but you have family members who are here in the United States, and you want them to be a part of the network, we will, on your behalf, send them a t-shirt. We might even do like a thing where we send them a free t-shirt. So just be on the lookout for that. And if you have any family members, because shipping the t-shirts here in the United States is very cheap. So for us here to support our members, here in the United States, for us to support our members in other parts of the world, and I know sometimes people have family maybe in the United States, and they ask them to send money back home or send support back home. We can have brothers and sisters sending something to their family members in the United States to show their appreciation and want to make sure that they're safe. So we definitely are looking at that as another way of getting more shirts and masks and things in the hands of our members. But thank you for that question. Thank you for all the questions, of course. Let's get about 3 more questions.
Yeah. The next question is, if one was removed as ambassador, how is that person going to be renominated?
Who?
Renominated.
What does that mean? I don't understand.
Like being an ambassador again.
All they have to do is start doing the ambassador work. Like, okay, that's a great question. I didn't understand. I'm sorry. Thank you, Yvonne. We're about the work. It doesn't matter if you have a degree or a mini college, university degrees. You could be a PhD, or you have no degree. It's not about your family background or how much money you have in your pocket. We don't ask any of those questions. That's not what we require for you to be an ambassador. What we require is a dedication. We require your commitment, and we require your excellence. This is a meritocracy in that context. So I've had people ask sometimes, well, what do I get out of being an ambassador? And the answer is a world where Black people are no longer harmed and humiliated from racism. If that's not enough, then that's probably not for you. That's what we're here for. We're literally here to make sure Black people no longer are harmed and humiliated from racism and xenophobia. Our ambassadors are key in making sure that happens. If being a part of something like that and waking up every day knowing that you're contributing to building something that's never been created in the world, if that's not enough to motivate you to be an ambassador, it's not for you. If you want to get paid, there's probably plenty of better ways to get paid because it's not a paid position. So I would just say very clearly, for those who have been removed, just do the work and then we'll bring you back in as an ambassador. And we appreciate everyone who's made the sacrifice and committed. Those who are with us today and those who were with us in the beginning and those who will come on board today. We definitely say thank you. We appreciate you. All right, give me two more.
Yes, Johanna Wawe is asking, can I print my own t-shirt of I love Black people?
Can you print your own t-shirts of I love Black people? My short answer is anytime I see somebody printing anything that says I love Black people, all I could do is say, go ahead, amen, hallelujah. So I think in a realist way, to actually see somebody actually printing a t-shirt saying I love Black people, we will always support that. I think this is the only thing I would say is that when we give t-shirts out to our members and to our ambassadors, we've done it for free. Of course, sometimes we have the shipping costs and whatnot. So what we use the t-shirts to do is to literally show our support and gratitude for our members and our ambassadors first. And then for those people who are, interested in supporting us, they give a financial contribution and they purchase a shirt. But again, if you put I love Black people in everything you own, I think that would be amazing. It's an affirmation. We always have to be clear that when we're dealing with white supremacist ideology, it does deliberate things to make loving Black people something that's bad. We got to make loving ourselves and loving our brothers and sisters that's something that's amazing. So we definitely support all things I love Black people. What's next?
Yes, the next question is, what are the qualifications for one to be called an ambassador?
I think I kind of went through that already. What else you got?
And they are also asking about the branches in different countries like Zambia, Uganda, and Kenya, whether we have branches there.
As Sister Yvonne finally said after 3 made-up answers, God bless her, we have people in over 130 some countries. That being said, yes, we have people all over. And if you're interested, again, just sign up and apply to be an ambassador or sign up for our Pan-African class. As a part of that signing up, we'll include you into the different country groups that we have. How many WhatsApp country groups do we have?
Yes, I can double check. And the question was about branches, not ambassadors or members. Like, do we have branches in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya?
Okay, yeah, good question. How many WhatsApp groups do we have in different countries?
We have about 30.
Okay, so we have about 30 different WhatsApp groups that are representative of different countries. And then we have some general groups that represent continents. We are a digital first movement. We don't spend our money and time on buildings, utility bills, paying staff to sit in the office, telephone lines. First of all, we don't have those resources. And even if we did, we would spend those resources on more technology so that we can connect to more people more efficiently. There's so many different cities in each country. You set up like our headquarters in Harare. Well, there's people who say, well, what about Bulawayo or Mutare? So there's literally, when we start talking about these locations, the physical locations add such a cost that what we are focused on is having meetups. Once we get past the worst of this pandemic, what we've had in the past is we'll have meetups. So literally we'll identify a Black-friendly or Black-owned space where we have our members come and we'll discuss what we've been doing, and they'll meet either one of the staff or the co-founders to talk about what we've been doing globally. But remember, as a movement, we don't really respect, and I don't want to offend anybody, these borders that have separated us. The borders in Africa were not made by African people. They literally made by colonizers to destroy our unity, to undermine our sovereignty. So to be candid, even when it comes to these borders, we see them as obstacles, not something that we reinforce. Only by the fact that we have limitations based on technology do we even use these particular boundaries. But we're more focused on our brothers and sisters. No matter where you live, we want you to be able to be actively involved. If you're not even in a country where Black population is high, we want you to be able to be actively involved. So technology allows us to be able to organize in that way. If when we were being colonized by these Europeans, we all had WhatsApp, we could have warned each other, say, hey, if you see them come and they're looking thirsty and hungry, don't let them off the boat. We could have literally used technology efficiently to warn each other about the behavior and savagery and the barbaricness of this white supremacist ideology. That being said, today, we still want to make sure the time and money that we spend is leveraging ways that we can better communicate as opposed to paying for buildings and whatnot. Last question.
Yes, the last question is, what are the steps to be an ambassador?
I already said that one. What's the last question?
Yes, with regards to Black businesses, do we consider if their suppliers are Black too? Thus promoting the group economics, or important thing is that Black is, the businesses is Black owned. What if the supplier is a racist?
If the supplier is racist, let me just say this just so everybody's clear. We entertain some things like this, but let me just tell you why we don't deal with a whole bunch of philosophers and debates. We will discuss things like this. So our focus is on making sure that when our people are somewhere and they're in a situation where they're vulnerable, they have a place they can go and be treated with dignity and respect. The two owners and their great-great-grandmamas could all be Vietnamese. If they treat Black people with dignity and respect, they are a part of I Love Black People as a Black-friendly business. If the business has one Black owner, a board that's half Arab, and has 4 Filipino folks and 2 Portuguese and 1 person from Papua New Guinea and they treat Black people with dignity and respect, and they honor us when we come in there, that's a part of I Love Black People. If they got 2 Black owners, 2 Black partners, 2 Black grandmamas, 2 Black great-great-great-granddaddies, and they treat Black people horribly, they're not a part of I Love Black People. I don't know how else I can say it. Hopefully that answers the question. That we don't, this thing about, you know, somebody's wholesaler back in some other place did something. If you go to this physical location and you know that your mom is not going to be harmed and humiliated, we're adding that to I Love Black People, period. You don't have to go count how many jelly beans or how many times they said hello. If they treat you well in this establishment and you're not being profiled and harmed, that's a win, that's a W. We consider that a victory. But we don't go into this thing of, was the past owner this and then the new owner's that, suppose they change. Listen, as long as they never change treating Black people well, with dignity and respect, they're good. As soon as they treat Black people horribly, I don't care what the person looked like who owned it, they're not a part of our mission, because our mission is to protect Black people. Our mission is not trying to make Black people rich. So these people who think that, you know, that this issue is about having a bunch of money, there was a place called Tulsa, Oklahoma in America where Black people had lots of money and they killed all of them. The United States government killed all of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So we're not going to out money our way to this liberation that we're talking about. We're going to have to, no matter how much money we have, we're going to need Black people to be able to work together to protect each other and to work with other folks who are willing to be supportive of that. If you even look at the liberation movements in Africa, much of the support of most of the liberation armies came from places like China, the Soviet Union, East Germany, North Korea. Again, I'm not going to tolerate a Chinese person disrespecting us no more than a European or Arab. But if somebody's willing to help train and develop and support our movement and they respect us, we'll work with them. The terms of engagement are going to have to be respect, though. We're not going to fall in love with folks just because they smile. But my point to you is we're not going to spend hours and hours trying to figure out who's great-great-great-great-grandmama. We're not doing it. Not here. There's plenty of places where they want to go to genealogy and start talking about where people, no, we're not doing it. If you go to this place and they treat you with dignity and respect, that's a W. If you go there and they treat you and disrespect you, that's an L. That means a loss. That's not good. I don't know if that answered that question, but I want to make sure we're clear. We don't spend a whole bunch of time on things that aren't going to contribute to making sure that we build, for the first time in history, a safety net that protects our people. Is that it? Okay, so I think that's it. I've already taken up too much time. I know Anana Ku and my leader and the co-founder, Mr. Mabdare, are going to be mad at me, but thank you all for contributing, participating. We have our email is info@iloveblackpeople.com. You definitely can send information there. As you know, we're on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Skinner Liberated. You can see me on Twitter. We have our own Twitter accounts there, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn. So thank you so much. I am because we are.
Yes.
Thank you, Sister Yvonne.
Thank you very much, sir. We are going to continue our call with our another co-founder, Mr. Christophe Mapondera. Mr. Mapondera, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I know we're delving into other people's time territory here, but I'll make just a few comments to preserve time, probably part of my major presentation, I'll do it next week, when I have more time to do it more justice. But today I've got two things. First of all, I read a very, I want to welcome you again. Every Saturday I feel so blessed that I get to talk to you and share some of my experiences and ideas. My agenda today is to discuss two things. One is the issue of drug problems amongst the African youth on the continent. As I mentioned last time, that the African youth, you must realize you are on a path where efforts are being made to destroy you. One, misinformation. Right now, the thing that is bothering a lot of us is the advent of these drugs that are being introduced to our young people. I read a very disheartening article on how the so-called crystal meth, it's a foreign drug that is being introduced amongst our young people. Unfortunately, our young people, they think they're doing a very cool thing by getting involved into this with this drug, but it's destroying them. And there's nothing cool about that. And I just want you to be aware that this is one way of trying to destroy the young people. As I said, everyone is looking up to you. You are the biggest market in the world right now coming up. You've got the biggest resource for intellectual and creativity. Everyone is after you. You are the next political leadership of Africa. So if they messed up your minds right now, it means you are not going to be focused on how you are going to save Africa, how you are going to build Africa, that is helpful to you and everyone else. As I indicated last time, to be a Pan-Africanist, you must be aware of what is happening in your environment. You can't be a Pan-Africanist and be ignorant, of what is going on. You must always keep your eyes open and your ears clear that you understand the forces that are surrounding you. So I want to urge you, if you have some friends, wherever they are, that are now indulging in the use of these drugs and so forth, I would say, please play your role, play your part, and discourage them from doing so and help them look for a different path to happiness than the use of the drugs that are going to be killing them. So that is one message that I have. The second message, I think I'll need more time for it. I was going to talk about understanding and knowing your resources. Today I was going to talk about iron and steel. Everything that you do every day is you touch steel, you touch iron. If you get into a car, it's made out of steel. If you eat breakfast with a fork and knife, it's made out of steel, unless if it is plastic. You build a house, you use, door frames, doors, some are made out of steel and so forth. So steel is a component for development. And I'd like you to understand that. Next week, probably I'll get more into details on that. But that is what my message was. Maybe you can spend the whole of next week to really try to understand what does the iron and steel mean in your everyday lives. We've got all the iron ore resources in Africa, but the steel is made in China or in Europe. They come and get the iron ore from Africa and all the components for it. Then they'll sell to us steel in the form of, sheet metal that we use for making, utensils and what have you. They send us, they sell us steel in the form of construction materials and so forth. So instead of us making use of our resources, to produce that steel so that we can make, our own bridges, from steel that we make ourselves and so forth. So there's quite a lot. I'd like you to go spend some time next week, learn more about what impact does still have in your lives. And next week, I'll go into more details on it, and we can have a discussion. This is part of my mission to make us become aware of the resources that we have, the value of the resources that we have, and how we can make use of them to advance our own development and create the kind of Africa that we want. That's all I have for today, Yvonne. I know there are other people waiting. Again, I appreciate the presentation, our co-founder, Mr. Skinner had. I think he has got the things that I think we should always be aware of. Again, as I say, a Pan-Africanist that doesn't take into account, what the Pan-African world is all about, by knowing, with those people that can provide the environment that you need, that Pan-Africanism would not be helpful. But what my partner was saying is something that I think we must always keep in mind. Thank you so much, and you all have a wonderful weekend, and we meet next weekend.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mapondera. And there is a comment that thanks for touching concern about drug issue, especially nowadays, our beloved Black brothers and sisters. They are thanking you for talking about that.
They are most welcome.
Yes,
we have to be mindful of that. It's killing people, and it hurts my heart to see the damage it's doing to young people. There's no excuse for that. We must really fight it hard and get rid of it.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mapondera.
Okay.
We are going to continue our call with the healthcare class with the H.U.R. Sinzele. Nana H.U.R, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, I think I have a glare from my window. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you can see me well. Greetings. Thank you. I'm happy to see all the beautiful Black people today. So this is our beginning cycle of our Pan-African healthcare class. So we're starting back with week 1. So in this course, we will talk about sort of the foundational information on what holistic healing is, or what we will discuss in this Pan-African healthcare course. So if you are a part of this current WhatsApp group, hopefully you received the packet for this week in the group. And next week, I'll be sure to list it all by each day. So I kind of portion it out for each day. But basically the course, it basically assists the student in taking control of their health and healing. The course will highlight various natural over-the-counter remedies, whether it's herbs, homeopathics, vitamins, essential oils, flower remedies, and such, that will assist in maintaining and or regaining health. The student will also learn how to eat to boost immunity and how to relieve daily stressors holistically. We'll also talk about building a natural medicine chest. We'll discuss common health concerns or complaints and possible traditional natural remedies. You'll learn how to kind of make certain remedies and formulas based on the information provided. And the overall concept is just to promote self-love and empowerment through self-healing and dis-ease prevention. So the absence of illness or not having any problem maintaining health and wellness. And so we want to provide healing by providing a historical overview and a working knowledge of traditional healing modalities and principles. So that's sort of, and what I didn't do is send that in the WhatsApp class. And I often kind of miss that part, even though I kind of discuss it. But just so you're clear, what this next 4-week series entails is that we will talk about those items specifically. So we'll start with what holistic medicine is, or what holistic healing is. We're calling it Pan-African healthcare. However, I'm a traditional healer. I specialize in natural healing methods or modalities. So that is the focus. So we'll talk about emotional healing, spiritual, mental healing, and then of course, just sort of physically how the body can maintain overall health and wellness. This is not something where I'm giving specific recommendations or advice, but simply providing the information. So this is all for educational purposes. So take that into consideration while joining in on the lectures for these next 4 weeks. I want to share the screen, if I may, Yvonne. And let's hope that I have it pulled up correctly.
Yes, you are allowed to share your screen.
Yeah, of course I don't have it up, right? Okay, a minute. All right, do you see my handout here? Hopefully.
No.
It's always a problem. I'll get it one day. I'm going to get it one day. Oh, now I see. So I think you see it now.
Yes.
So this is our sort of first handout where basically we discuss just some basic definitions of what holistic healing is or what holistic health is. If I can get back to the top of the page. And so the idea of holistic medicine, this is basically a form of healing that considers the whole person, mind, body, spirit, emotions. It's basically the quest for optimal health. And any other variation of holistic medicine, whether we're saying holistic wellness, whether we're saying we're taking a holistic approach, all of this has to do with looking at the entire person so that we can maintain balance and achieve optimal health. So all things are relative, they all work together. And this is not just addressing the physical, but also the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. And there are many concepts or components to holistic health. So it may be in terms of nutrition, it may be in terms of physical therapies, massage, acupuncture, Reiki. It may be in the form of what medicines or what means are used to heal the body, whether it is food, like I said, nutrition, or whether it's herbs, or whether it's homeopathy, whether it's vegetables, fruits, minerals, vitamins, things of that nature, or whether we're talking about energy healing, where we're dealing with balancing the chakras, or dealing with energy work with the aura, the energy fields, the meridians, various concepts there. We may also understand there are different holistic principles. And I won't go through each of these, but basically the concept is that you focus on achieving optimal health, right? We want to make sure that we understand every component that affects a person's well-being, right? And so this kind of goes hand in hand with the definition of holistic medicine. We also talk about the healing power of love. All holistic practitioners would strive to meet the client. I don't really use the term patient client, with grace, kindness, acceptance, you know, in a really loving way. That's how a healer is most powerful. Dealing with the whole person, again, as we've mentioned, the mind, body, and spirit in which the person lives. We focus on prevention and treatment. We're talking about the holistic approach. So not just the symptoms, but avoiding illness and also learning how to prevent illness in the future. The innate healing power, basically every person has an innate ability to heal itself or oneself. So this basically utilizes the individual's personal power to heal themselves, involves integration of healing systems. So where you may combine various treatments and healing sources and regimens. And everyone can make decisions as to that. So you can modify your life to include a change in how you eat, where you live, how you function throughout the day, what procedures you do or don't do, and whatever other treatment plan you put in place to create wellness for yourself. It also focuses on a relationship-centered care, where basically the individual practitioner, along with the client or patient, develops a relationship, and it basically feeds off of the other. Both parties are involved and responsible. The client knows their body best, and so they are also taken into consideration. They're trusted in that process in terms of what they feel or know their needs to be, and the practitioner would assist and kind of add to that concept. Individuality, that not everything is for everybody. Even when we talk about herbs, we'll focus on how there may be different herbs that do 10, 15, 20 different things, but for one individual, it may have that specific healing purpose. And so everybody is different, has unique needs, and the actual nature of that person, that will come out, and that is what would be focused on when you're doing individualized care. Teaching by example, a good holistic healthcare provider will work towards incorporating the personal principles of health and teaching the client about that, so that they can, on a day-to-day basis, know how to care for themselves and adapt to that holistic, you know, living concept. And then learning opportunities. Every situation should be a learning opportunity. So that all helps with an individual's personal care. You know, all life experiences include birth, joy, suffering, death. So kind of learning how to navigate through each of these rights or these different situations are necessary for healing. So this, you know, is just an overview of sort of having a holistic approach to healing. As kind of briefly mentioned before, there are different types of holistic healing modalities. Some refer to them as alternative therapies. Some may include what's called folk medicine, herbal medicine, massage, acupuncture, exercise therapy, naturopathy, massage, music therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathy, nutritional therapy, and there are many, you know, more. But this is also just to give the information as to all the various ways of healing the body naturally or holistically. And just like we talked about holistic medicine, holistic wellness, or holistic approach, these things are used interchangeably, just as the words alternative, complementary, natural, holistic, all of these terms are a lot of, in a lot of ways, used interchangeably. I put the picture here of the Sangoma, the traditional healer here, because as we go through, well, because this is a wonderful, beautiful example of a traditional healer, one. Two, as we debunk our colonized minds and we have a notion of what healing is and what a healthcare provider or practitioner is, I want to reintroduce you to a real healer, and that this not be what we would stray from, but we run back to. And when we talk about different herbs in part 2, there will certainly be some that can maybe predominantly be found here in the States and not in other parts of the world. And so I encourage those of us in or on the continent, go to your traditional healers. Go to your Comfort, go to your Ialarisha, go to your Sangomas, go to your Vodun practitioners, and many other names that I just don't know the names for, but go to those healers who specialize in herbs and natural remedies that are native to your areas. And so wanted to highlight that. Getting further into holistic principles, again, there are different concepts and theories, but they all kind of have and are sewn together to include very similar patterns of thought or trains of thought. And so here you see listed some 4 concepts. So basically, I am responsible for my own health and well-being, right? We all are responsible for our own health and well-being. We can take control. We have to first notice that there's a problem or develop an understanding of what our norm is and how we're feeling and how we're doing, how our bodies are functioning, how we're feeling emotionally, spiritually, and so on and so forth. So we have to take responsibility for that. Also, all people have innate healing powers, and some of these concepts we've already talked about, right? And then the patient is a person, not a disease. So you have to remove yourself from the illness itself. You are still a whole and wonderful person, despite whatever diagnoses you have, or whatever dis-ease or illness you have. You are still a person and not that disease. Treatment is finding and fixing the cause of the condition, not just alleviating the symptoms. So yes, always when choosing a practitioner or continuing a line of or course of treatment, you want to make sure that you have a practitioner that is focusing on not just alleviating symptoms, but finding out what caused those symptoms in the first place. So some of the handout I'm going to skip through, but just know different recovery approaches may include things like changing your diet or focusing on a specific diet. It may include some detox routines or rituals. It may include fasting. There may be issues that require you to avoid certain foods. There may be some other healing modalities. I mentioned a couple of these earlier, but sometimes in terms of energetic healing or raising your vibrations and making your body be in balance, you may deal with certain things like chakra balancing or knowing and taking control of the various meridians in the body. It may be focusing on eating alkaline foods or drinking alkaline water, various things of that nature. Energy healing, vibrational healing, I've kind of discussed that as some of the holistic approaches that exist. So getting specifically into some of the information I think is just good for us all to know is we should have a basic understanding of what our body needs to function. So what are nutrients, right? Nutrients are substances found in food, right, that provide nourishment to our bodies. There are 6 main types of nutrients. There are carbohydrates, there are fats, there are proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. Okay. So there are several charts that I won't go through specifically. This is just for your information. I like visuals, Sometimes some of us are visual learners, some of us are kinesthetic, some of us are auditory. I know in these types of sessions, you kind of have to implement each of these. So I try to give some visuals rather than you just hearing my voice. And I encourage you to go out and do some experimentation on your own and kind of putting your hands on some of these foods and supplements and herbs and things that we'll talk about over the course of the 4 weeks. So this chart just gives you a breakdown of some foods that contain these various vitamins. However, there's a better, oh no, I hit something. You probably can still see it, but I cannot. Oh, goodness. Another chart here, this gives information on protein-rich foods. And notice that I don't think they even include meats here. I think this is giving you a plant-based chart or visual here as to foods that are high in proteins. This is for you to focus on or study a little later. Here's another chart on proteins, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of compare foods or meats such as chicken and tuna and beef alongside plant-based sources of proteins, and know that you can certainly get proteins from non-meat diets as well. And I included this chart here just so you have, and this will really fall in line, I think, in week 4 when we talk about some of the organs, like our paths of elimination. But explaining some of the organ functions I thought was important here, so that you get the understanding of what the different organs do and why we need certain nutrients and that sort of thing. So we know that the lungs provide oxygen to blood. We know that the heart circulates blood throughout the body. We know that the stomach helps digest food, intestines absorb nutrients from food, liver removes toxins from blood and processes nutrients from food. And we know that kidneys filter blood of waste and extra fluids. So back to the nutrients. So we know that nutrients are separated into what we call macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients are what we call our proteins, our carbohydrates, and fat. So we know that proteins, usually people look at it again just as found in meats, but we know that there are many plant-based sources of protein as given in the charts prior to this slide. But we know that proteins are needed because they provide the body with amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, which are needed for growth, development, and to repair and maintain body tissues, right? And so we know that protein provides structure to muscle and bone, and it repairs tissue when damaged and helps the immune cells fight inflammation and infection. Okay, so in addition to just meats, we know that there are many other plant sources for proteins. We know that proteins are essential. Carbohydrates, the main role of carbohydrates is to provide energy and fuel the body the same way gasoline fuels a car, right? So foods such as corn, beans, plantains, rice, potatoes, other vegetables like yucca or African yam. These are foods that deliver sugars and starches that provide energy through the carbohydrates, right? So we know that carbs are essential, but we know that we also, because of certain illnesses that too many carbs can cause, we know that we also have to be mindful of how much and which types of carbohydrates we include in our diet. But make no mistake, carbohydrates are essential nutrients that the body needs. Okay, because this is energy that allows the body to do daily activities like walking, talking, running, moving heavy objects, you know, just the ability to even function day to day. Carbohydrates are needed. Fat also gets a bad rap, right? But again, fat is an essential nutrient. Dietary fat, which is found in oils, coconut, nuts, milk, cheese, meat, poultry, fish. These provide structure to cells and cushions membranes to help prevent damage. Oils and fats are also essential for absorbing fat-soluble vitamins such as vitamin K, A, D. So these are nutrients that are important for the development of different parts of the body, okay? So these are our macronutrients. Our micronutrients are our vitamins and our minerals, right? So vitamins and minerals are food components that help support overall health, right? And it helps with cell metabolism, neurological functions, and that sort of thing. Vitamins specifically aid in energy production, wound healing, bone formation, immunity, eye and skin health. Minerals help with maintaining cardiovascular health and providing structure to the skeleton, okay? So we know that all of these nutrients are essential nutrients. Some are considered macro, some are considered micro. And there is a chart here that I included simply for you to have sort of an outline of what the different nutrients do, what they do, where you find them, and how much you need, okay? So I will not go through these, but I wanted to point out that we have a chart that we can use to go by. And honestly, through our foods is the best way to obtain our vitamins, our micronutrients of vitamins and minerals. And of course, when we know that we are not eating the best diets and are probably deficient and have some imbalances, we know that we may need supplementation. But even before going to a synthetic vitamin or mineral, I would also encourage you to take a look at not only food sources of your vitamins and minerals, but also herbal sources of vitamins and minerals. So this handout I put together basically tells you which herbs contain various vitamins and minerals. So if you're an herbal tea drinker or if you're a tea drinker, I suggest that you include herbs, not just your typical white or black teas like lemon or other teas that we just typically make our warm tea or our hot tea or our iced tea with. Use actual herbs that will have some health or healing benefits to. So for example, some that I like to highlight, and as you get to study this chart, you'll find out that there are some herbs that will be repeated throughout. And you'll know that these are some of the more nutrient dense or highly nutritious herbs. So herbs like catnip, right? You'll see that catnip is high in vitamin A, it's high in B vitamins. It's also found in, oh goodness, I keep doing this. I have too many screens up on my computer, that's the problem. But we know that catnip is rich in a lot of different vitamins and minerals. And I'm trying to scroll through. So choline, folic acid, inositol, HABA, and I know there are many others, but just to demonstrate, I want you to see that you'll find these certain herbs that you'll find over and over again, manganese. And so catnip, for one, is one that you might include as sort of a regular daily tea that you take in. Another one is alfalfa. Alfalfa you will find over and over again, and you'll find that it is very nutrient rich. So it has vitamin D, it has B vitamins, it has vitamin K, vitamin E, and so on and so forth. So alfalfa might be another herb that you would include in your daily routine just to, increase your nutrient uptake. Red raspberry is another one. So there are some that you can pick and choose from, or if you know that there are certain vitamins and minerals that you are perhaps, even if not specifically deficient in, but you're maybe not getting enough of, or that you need to just increase a bit. If it's more vitamin C that you need to just boost your immune system as the seasons change, or as you go back into the office and you're around more and more people and you want to boost your immune system, or if you have some skin issues, you may want to do some herbs that are higher in vitamin E. If you're having lower energy, you may want to, read up and see which of these herbs are dense in different B vitamins. So this is another way to increase your nutrition intake. So moving on. Don't think I will spend much time on this handout. What I wanted to highlight here, if you're just simply trying to start improving your health, there's some basic concepts focusing on, including certain herbs, getting certain vitamins and minerals in your body. Drinking good, healthy, quality water is key. The best is alkaline water if you're able to get it. If not, distilled water is a good option, but basically you want to avoid sugary drinks. What they have highlighted here is sugary sodas, but we know that sugar is found in a lot of drinks and not just sodas. But yes, we can do without the carbonation, but even different bottled teas and even juices have a lot of sugar. So you would also be mindful of those sugary drinks as well. Another thing you can do is to stop or at least reduce your intake of certain meats, dairy products, and again, sugar. And a lot of people struggle with becoming vegetarian and cutting out meat. I would say just as much emphasis, if not more, should probably be put on avoiding sugar because you'll have a lot of even vegetarians who still consume too many sugars. So as we are limiting these things, treat them all the same. Limit meats as much as sugar, or sugars as much as meat, because they both can have some really devastating consequences in terms of your health. And then the suggestion given here is start with maybe drinking one green smoothie or fresh vegetable juice every day. So some people will do different protein powders that may have some green, some chlorella or some spirulina or wheatgrass or some of those green leafy vegetables that you can add to smoothies, or you may simply do a vegetable juice in a juicer. They have listed here carrots and celery, which is okay, but I would even suggest something that more so has some leafy green vegetables in it. Celery is great. Celery is excellent for a number of different minerals, good for people who have hypertension. We know that carrots are good and they have natural sources of vitamin A, or specifically beta carotene, and are good for the eyes, but we know that it is a more starchy vegetable, so it contains a little more sugar than, say, a green vegetable. So be mindful as to which vegetables you're choosing when you're doing a fresh vegetable juice as well. So sticking with cucumbers or celery or leafy greens like beet greens or dandelion greens or kale or things of that nature are going to be better options than just doing a lot of carrot and beet juices, just because they are root vegetables and they are a little more starchy and sugary. Some possible diets that people may choose to get into would be things like a raw food diet. This is a diet where you're pretty much just doing raw foods. A lot of people do dehydrators, or low temperature foods that have been marinated and like I said, dehydrated. I think the rule of thumb is no food over, I want to say 110 degrees in terms of maintaining it as raw. But this type of diet gives you high levels of energy and it's good for people who have migraines, bloating, and need to lose weight. Juicing or juice fasting is another option for folk. This is using an actual juicer, not a blender, but juicing raw fruits and vegetables to get all of the nutrition of those fruits and vegetables. So this basically helps maintain the foods that help, with digestion, helps with nutrient uptake and that sort of thing, right? And a lot of times people help improve their digestion and the quality of the nutrition they get into their bodies if they juice. Alkaline diet works for a lot of people. This is basically focusing on 70% at least of alkaline forming foods as opposed to acid forming foods. You can Google different charts and handouts on that. But basically this is about balancing the pH in the body to reduce or avoid any disease or illness. And this is very important because there are a lot of conditions that are caused because there's too much acid in the body, whether it's arthritis or some kind of movement illness like that due to inflammation and that sort of thing. Just know that a more alkaline based diet will help alleviate those types of things, for example. A macrobiotic diet, these do include cooked foods, but are predominantly vegetable and grains in the diet. This is usually sort of an Asian style of diet where you'll get a lot of the kimchi and bok choy and cruciferous vegetables along with grains and such that they kind of saute or steam. The Gerson diet, it basically combines a number of different concepts, organic vegetarian diets, along with raw juicing, coffee enemas, and natural supplements. So these are just some options for you to kind of start with as you are looking to improve your health, picking a diet plan, increasing your water intake, cutting out different sugars in drinks or sugars in foods, reducing meats and dairy products, things of that nature. And before we get into the next thing because just as important as what you eat is how you eat it, right? But let me pause to look at the chat to see if there are any questions. And I know that this topic can be kind of boring. I don't know an exciting way to teach it per se, but hopefully you will find it useful. Loaded herbal teas, yeah, that's good. Let me go back up. Power off. Okay, so somebody that necessarily wasn't for me, but someone having an issue with the color Black or changing the perspective on Black. I think that's the whole point of this, is we have to make Black acceptable and something loving and desirable. I'm an African. And then you get people who say, I ain't African, I'm blah, blah, blah. And now somebody's having a problem with being called Black. I don't know what to say about that. I'm gonna stick to the health topic. Oh gosh, there was more comments about that. Okay, who knew? I'm gonna skip over all of that. Yeah, so sea moss, definitely. So any of your sea vegetables or sea foods, you know, your sea vegetation that you find in the sea are going to be very nutrient dense. Oh, Victoria is fasting. I'm sorry, this is not helping you, right? Oh, y'all really carried on with this conversation about Black. Okay. All right. Black is beautiful. Black is amazing. I love being Black. Of course, we know that we are not literally Black, but we are. Black is a mindset, not necessarily a color. Okay, so I think I got weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, chlorella, spirulina, yes. So, okay, yeah, okay. Thank you all for your comments. Corn, yeah, so, yeah, I'm not really a fan of corn. Someone's asking if corn has any nutritional value. Not really. And let me just say, I pulled some of these handouts together just because it may have some kind of chart or an explanation of certain concepts that I find useful overall, but not every piece of the slides or the packet will be things that I 100% agree with. I never really recommend corn, and corn definitely as a colon therapist and seeing what comes out of people right from the other end that didn't digest. Corn eaters, you know, usually you are not chewing up all your corn and it's coming out the other end just as it came into your body, right? So, you know, they consider corn a carbohydrate and having sort of fuel for the body, not the best carbohydrate to add to your diet at all. That the enzymatic barrier around it, or that skin around it, just really, we end up not really breaking it down very well. White corn or silver queen corn, I think is a better corn. It's a little softer, a little easier to digest. So if you're a corn lover, your typical yellow corn that you're buying is definitely a little harder to digest. So, okay, and before I saw your, oh, you just sent that. Yes, it comes out of your body. Yes, thank you, Dr. Wright. Yes, and that's why I said I'm going to talk about the health stuff, and definitely I will let Dr. Wright handle the I think conversation that's going on about Black or being Black and the color Black and that sort of thing. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Wright. Okay, so so I think I kind of scrolled through pretty fast. And also, Yvonne, if you can confirm with me, am I finished at 12:15? I think you. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Okay. I knew you were in the background doing some other things. Okay, but 12:15. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm on course. But yes, and for the people making the comments about the race and color and that sort of thing, please stay on. Just because Dr. Wright will have a lot of good information, but she will address those things specifically. And she is up next at 12:15. So again, eating good quality foods is important, but also what's important is how we eat the foods, okay? So it's not just okay to simply eat any and everything all together. Same concept with water. So, and I didn't address that in detail. So let me just say this. Water is crucial. We know that 2/3 of the body is water. We know that it's essential in all things. Just as in our bodies, it is on earth. It is what nourishes and hydrates the entire planet, right? But we, of course, wouldn't drink our daily content or quantity of water all in one setting, right? So as good as it is for you, we still spread it out throughout the day. And a good rule of thumb for water intake is going to be half your weight in ounces. And I usually kind of top that off at 100 ounces because a lot of us are maybe over 200 pounds. But if you're getting at least 100 ounces, so if you are 200 pounds or more, if you're getting at least 100 ounces of water a day, that is a great amount of water. And you want to spread that out equally. Most people are up 15, 16 hours a day. You want to drink on water every couple of hours, right? So bit by bit, you want to take in your water. Now, let's talk specifically about food. We know that a number of different foods are essential for us to obtain the nutrients that our bodies need. However, we do not eat them all at the same time on the same plate in the same setting. Typically, most of us, even in various cultures, whether we're on the continent, whether we're here in the States or elsewhere, seems to be a standard that we feel meat and potatoes, right? A protein and starch is what you typically combine. However, for proper digestion, this is not a good combination. Proteins do not combine or digest well with starches. And so of this entire chart, that is the most important lesson, okay? Proteins go with vegetables. Starches go with vegetables, okay? So if you're having fish, you should have it with some broccoli or some kale. Or if you're having yams or sweet potatoes or French fries or a baked potato, you should have that with some asparagus or, you know, some watercress or some spinach stew or something of that nature. You want to mix your starches with vegetables and your proteins with vegetables. And you can study the other combinations. There are even better combinations as to which fruits combine well. And let me just point this out. The whole world is obsessed with smoothies these days. Fruits and vegetables do not mix well. I don't care what company is making a smoothie mix. I don't know or care who is talking about smoothies and whatever diet plan and fitness person, and they're telling you to mix spinach and bananas and mangoes and whatever. This is not how traditionally in the holistic healing world we combine foods. It is a poor combination to mix vegetables with fruits. We do things to make it more palatable or make it taste better. That is still not your ideal situation for proper digestion. And if you're eating something and it does not digest properly, it has no point. You have no, it's useless that you have even consumed it. So then in that case, you are simply eating for pleasure and not for nutrition, okay? So the last thing I want to quickly go over is some of these important elements of healthy eating, some of which we may have already spoken about, but I wanted to make sure that we get through these. If I haven't said already, definitely you want to eat whole foods. If you can do organic, great, but you want as natural, as healthy, as close to being raw or in its natural state as possible, right? Fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, vegetable proteins, or what we're now calling plant-based proteins. This is what you really want the bulk of your food to be. Also, we want to eat high quality foods. I don't know that there are any dollar stores, right, in Africa, right? But here in America, they have what they call the dollar store, right? So these are sort of cheaper items. So not all are food, but of course, many sell foods. They sell vitamins, they sell bread, they even sell refrigerated and frozen foods, snacks, what have you. And I'm a thrifty person. I love the dollar store, the Dollar Tree, the Family Dollar, the whatever. However, I do not trust them with my foods. Okay, so this is a situation where you get what you pay for. So you don't want foods that are poorly grown, manufactured, packaged, or what have you. So you really want good quality foods. You want to read labels. You want to avoid stuff that have hydrogenated oils, food colors, monosodium glutamate, or any other kind of flavor enhancers, or things that just make it either look good or taste good, but has altered its natural state. Also, you want to limit how much you drink with a meal. Limit it to either nothing or 4 ounces. If you can go without drinking, you will be better at digesting your foods. Wait maybe 30 minutes, an hour before drinking. But if you do need to drink while you're eating, 4 ounces of liquids. Anything more than that will dilute the natural digestive juices that are in the body or that in the stomach that are there to digest your food. Chew your food thoroughly, eat in a relaxed environment, never when you're upset. So if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're really feeling some emotional high or low, don't eat. If you take that time to drink water or maybe some herbal teas or something, that's going to be best. But it will interfere with your digestion if you eat in an upset state. High fiber is important. Psyllium seed husk, flaxseed meal or flaxseed oil, deep sea fish oil, cod liver oil. These are things that give you fiber, a lot of grains and things like that. But fiber is important because that will help the waste in the colon bulk up so that you can then move it out of the body. Certain high fiber fruits like apples, grapefruit, cherries, plums, peaches, things like that are also high fiber foods. Make sure you eat those so that you can have good bowel movements. Here's another example of where I don't 100% agree with everything that's here. Drink 6 to 8 glasses of water. I'll say at least. And then also the issue is what's the size of the glass. But again, I prefer you go by the ounces. So use your weight. Half your weight in ounces is a good place to start with how much water you take in a day. Natural supplements, we've talked about some of that. If you're having problem digesting your food, you have indigestion, you don't have regular bowel movements, consider some type of digestive aid, a digestive enzyme, a pancreas product that'll help the digestion process, hydrochloric acid. These are all digestive aids that will assist in digesting your food. This is especially going to be necessary for people who don't practice good food combining, or they have some kind of gastrointestinal conditions. In moderation, or even eliminate altogether. Alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, even over-the-counter drugs. Sometimes we get too loose and liberal with over-the-counter thing. Oh, the slightest of headache or the slightest pain, you run to take some kind of pain reliever. Really try to do things to avoid the overuse or excessive use of certain medications, whether they're prescription medications or whether they're over the counter. Exercise, move your body, walk, stretch, do calisthenics, as we used to call it back in the day. Strength training, walking, cardio, whatever you can do on a consistent, regular basis to move your body, make sure you do that. And then, oh Lord, okay, my battery is about to die. Let me get to the charger. And then maintain regular elimination. Bowel movements are absolutely necessary. There's no way around it. And you have to go at least once a day. If not more, you definitely want to go at least once a day. Exercise, water intake, good healthy foods, probiotics, digestive enzymes. All of these are things that will help keep you on track with having good bowel habits. But eliminating is crucial. Doesn't matter if it's normal for you to go just once every 3 days. That's still not normal. You have to have bowel movements every day. If you're eating every day, you have to eliminate every day. Yeah, plastic is really not a container that we should put foods in, especially hot foods. So yes, I think you know the answer to that one. Okay, great. And so I think we are close to my time here. I don't know if I'm missing some questions. Same thing with water in the plastic bottles. Ideally, if you're able to drink in glass containers, that's going to be a better option for your water. And definitely not leaving those plastic water bottles in hot cars, you know, and under the sun all day and stuff like that. Microwaving foods in plastic containers. Yes, none of that is a good idea. So I don't think I'm missing any other questions. I think they are ready for you, Dr. Bright. And so next week we'll talk about herbs, homeopathic remedies, essential oils, and some other things. So if you're in the group, look forward to receiving your reading assignments, and I will see you all next week. So thank you for joining us. Hope you got a lot out of the information provided. And as always, I bid you good health and peace. Thanks, Yvonne.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua. We really enjoyed the lecture. I hope even the rest of the participants did enjoy. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Yes, we are going to continue the call with Dr. Wright. Dr. Wright, can you hear?
Hi, how are you? And you'll see me shortly.
Yes, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this weekend for our first session. So I'm going to be posting documents as we go through. I saw your message, Yvonne, but I'd like to post while I'm teaching. So hopefully I won't have any problems or difficulties. I see a lot of interesting people already in here. The grandson, I think someone said they're the grandson of Booker T. Washington, who had a copy of my book, and you'll see me shortly. Yeah, Eric Hughes, hi, welcome. Welcome to I Love Black People's course in Pan-African history and organizing. I actually use a couple of chapters from my book, Booker T. Washington in Africa. So I'm just trying to get my setup together here. And I have some little friends who want my attention before I get started. Anyway, so welcome. And so today what we're going to go over is just the syllabus, and I'll be posting that in real time. The syllabus as well as what to expect for the course. And you'll see that momentarily, all of this, including myself. But also, this is just to frame it a little bit. This course is called Pan-African History and Organizing, which I, over the last couple of cycles that we've taught it, have honed in more to give people an understanding of what it is, which is essentially a ideological development course for those of you who are in I Love Black People, to help you essentially focus on what it is you are doing as ambassadors, and do that in a very focused and methodical way. And part of the way to do that is to get you steeped in the history and the political history of people who have done this before us. And because certainly we're not doing any of this for the first time, not really. We are on a continuum in terms of the work of protecting Black people, African people, and organizing ourselves to do so. So really what I do is put umpteen years of history behind you to help propel you forward and ground you and root you in that history, political and otherwise, so that you stay on the path, and in real time we are able to qualify what we are doing and are very clear about whom we are doing it for. So I will start with, well, you know, I saw a conversation. I didn't get the gist of the conversation because I come on at a certain time, but I got bits and pieces of a conversation that I guess started before I came on with regard to identity. I'm your person to certainly discuss that with you. And I do want you to see me because I'd like introductions to be that way first go around. So you will momentarily, but yes, race and culture are discussed here in the context of this course. There's a lot of confusion for us around these issues, race, culture, ethnicity, as it relates to identity. So hopefully some of these things can be addressed in the context of this course, not necessarily in this session per se, but in the context of the course. Okay, let me see how I'm going to do this. We're on a little bit of a different schedule today, but hey, bear with me. You're working this out. So I am about to share my camera, and I want to I might switch back and forth between glasses so I can read and address some of your issues and concerns. Okay. All right, here we go. So, hello everyone. All right, so everybody should be able to see me. And I might actually come into the thing twice so that I can share documents and things of that nature at the same time. So let me start with saying my name is Tyreen Wright, Dr. Tyreen Wright. I've actually been teaching with and for I Love Black People for, this is the second year, and we are in the latter part of the year. So you all are really, it says Pan-African History and Organizing 10, but we've actually been doing this. So this is really 11, right? Because the first one didn't have a number, right? It was just Pan-African History and Organizing. And it didn't have a number on it. So then we started, then 1, 2, 3. So really it says 10, but we're in the 11th cycle. And I've been teaching all of them from the beginning and designed this particular course, which has developed into an ideological development and basically training course so that we can deal with what the work is that you all are doing, but grounded in the history, the culture, the politics, so that you are that much more intentional and clear on the work that you're doing for I Love Black People and why. Okay, so I'll be sharing documents as I go through this session. I love to start, I have a common practice in the academy, and I'll give a little bio, but I'm bad about giving bios and all that kind of stuff. I really like to just get to the work. Thank you. I really like to just get to the work, but I will talk just a little bit about myself so you understand just the perspective that I'm coming from and the position via which I theorize about the world and our condition. Yes, so I see the comments, some of the comments. Okay, so do this because I'm working. You guys see me on the screen, but I'm going to be in the WhatsApp group online on my computer at the same time. So one of the things that I do in the context of the Academy, and I wanted to incorporate it in this as well. All right, sorry, it's telling me what I need to do. Oh, stop, this thing is, okay, I have time. Is use a documentary that is called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. And it is a documentary that was produced as a result of a book called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey by Spencer Wells. Now, whenever I use any, and we'll be reading a lot and looking at various materials, I do not fixate on the messenger, so to speak, as much as I am focused on the information and what we are utilizing the information for. That being said, I am utilizing the film for the purpose of qualifying the theory that humanity began in Africa, and then we migrated around the world to all four corners of the world. That has been long held a theory, but in the film, you see a geneticist qualify that information through DNA mapping and going throughout the world and testing the DNA of various people. So really the first item that I share in the context of the group is the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, so that we all understand that, speaking to the issue that some people have already chimed in on about identity, culture, race, all of that, that is to drive home, the film is to drive home the point that humanity and human and African are synonymous. And I do use it that way, okay? Black is a whole nother issue, and really Black is more a political statement than it is a reference to one's color, because we all know that most people are not Black, just in the way that most people are not white, right? So those are really political statements and or social constructs, right? Race is a social construct, as opposed to really a provable through biology, okay? So it is not biologically verifiable race, right? So it's not real on a biological level. Race is a social construct created by the very people we are struggling against. So that also should give you pause on the issue of race. And race is determined by physical appearance. But then that says nothing for people who fall outside of the categories that are created in terms of physical appearance, right? And we know that nobody more than African people, human beings, right? The first humans on the earth, defy those ideas of what, one's phenotype should be, okay? Because we hold the largest genetic variation on the earth and are responsible for the world's diversity, physical diversity. So, but in the West, we have constructed race as it has been imposed as a social construct And then later on for African people in America, we have engaged in a political and social transformation of Blackness, right, which was imposed on us. But then we transform it within our communities. The problem with that is that not everybody has transformed the meaning of Blackness within their own communities, right? So what's happened in the United States has not happened yet in Latin America, even though they're on the brink of it. They have not gone through it, right? And come out on the other side yet in terms of their personal or their community's positive intellectual, social, political transformation of Blackness, right? It's not enough to adopt the term. That being said, we get into that, but I start this course before we get into any of the readings, bring us all up, raising all of our ships up to the same level by watching The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, so that without dispute, we understand to be human means to be African, period, first, okay? For most of the 200 to 300 years on this earth, we are African, period. And yes, within that, that's enough of a compromise to say African, because within the African context, we know that there are numerous phenotypes, ethnicities, languages, cultures. However, I would defer to Sheikh Anta Diop, who wrote the book, The Cultural Unity of Black Africa. Right, so we have many differences, and then we do have some major commonalities, okay, that runs like a thread that runs through many of us, okay? So we will get into it, and I start with that film, and he is a European. So you must understand the way I teach is I utilize materials, okay? I don't utilize people, but I utilize materials in order to engage in a certain conversation and present certain information. We don't fixate on him because Spencer Wells is a European geneticist, and he's going to represent for his group of people. You know, when you start getting into the hard conversation about who people are on a scientific level, very touchy when you talk about what Europe is in relationship to Africa, because they are so largely an offshoot of the human family tree and not really an essential part of the human family tree, not at all. They would not be the roots, they would not be the trunk, they would not be the branches, they would be more like a leaf. He, you know, he does his best to at least assert his humanity and his connection to the humanity on Earth, okay? But we are only there for the scientific aspects of what he's doing. He will say things like Europeans started science, and we know that this is not true, that Europeans did not invent science. Okay, we know that in ancient Kemet, they were embalming people over 5,000 years ago. And yes, to preserve a human body for 5,000 years, you must be a master of the human body, okay? And you must be a master of the science that you are using, okay? 5,000 years is not 2 minutes. 5,000 years is 5,000 years, okay? And we know nobody from Europe or anywhere in the Middle East that has been preserved for 5,000 years, but we have African people whose bodies are in Western museums today who are exactly 5,000 years plus, and plus counting old. And so we know that we gave birth to the sciences in Africa and nowhere else. However, you know, he's got to give a plug for his team. So I am going to use and share this film, and I continue to use it because I have no problem pausing him or stopping and say, hey, that right there is not the truth, that's a lie. But we are taking it for the value that it has in terms of the DNA evidence and the mapping right? And so the film begins with the oldest people that we know who are still in existence, which are the Khoisan in South Africa. And he uses a sample of their DNA in order to start mapping and following the genetic markers that will bring him essentially around the world, okay? So I use that so that we can all come to the same level and understand that race is not real, okay? It is without dispute on a scientific level that humanity began in Africa, okay? And then we can move from there, right? So that we don't have, you know, gaps in our knowledge and understanding of who we're talking about. And yes, Blackness, melanin, is a natural characteristic of human beings. Right? You wouldn't want to leave home without it, right? So melanin is like a human jacket. Out here, it has become an identity because of Westerners, Europeans in particular, constructing it in a taking social construct, creating a social construct called race. But it is not real, right? This construct called race. It is something that's created by a people who had scarcity and needed to create a hierarchy to give themselves primacy over resources, or priority over resources, okay? And I'll get more into that, but it's nothing more than that. Now, we have engaged in a transformation out here in the West, in the United States in particular, so we tend to assert Black identity as if, you know, it is everything. And the truth of the matter, it's just like Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, land, culture, people, right? So there is no Black land. There are people who look Black, but are not Black, right? Because there are really no Black people. There are African people. And, you know, there's African culture, right? And so point being is there's nothing wrong with having a Black identity. We just need to understand it. Culturally, what does that mean? Culturally, I have some little house guests who feel like when I'm teaching, they need to jump on my desk and engage. Anyway, so I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna begin sharing documents. Okay, and going over just like some of the expectations. Hello, is someone raising their hand? Is that what that means? Let me see something. Yes, I'm in the introductory process. Kevin, Douglas, hey, you're welcome, Dr. A. Hi, hello, 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 hello. Douglas, Ma, Ashin. How to get in the group? You can write the admin in here, the administrative I Love Black People, and ask them that you want to join. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna change gears really quickly for a second. And actually I might just take myself off camera because I gotta do something, but I'm still here. I'm going to be posting the documents, our syllabus initially for this course, and so we can get started, okay? Okay, so I saw some people had a few comments, but no problem. I'm gonna make sure that I keep, do the comments at the end, but also too, kind of get into them a little bit as we go through the session, which will not be long because this session is going to be a little bit shorter than our normal sessions. Our normal sessions, be prepared to go, you know, as long as we're allowed to go, okay? So, but one second, let me just get the syllabus in here for you all. So Okay. So, but actually, so what, if people wanted to ask questions right now, they can, just while I'm putting this in the group, that would be good. Oh, and then I do have to tell you just a little bit about me, right? So if you want to ask questions, you can right now about what we're going to be doing, but I will, so I'll answer those while I take care of the technical stuff, okay? Does anyone have any questions? And hi, hello from Panama. Okay, it seems like people don't have too many questions, so let me just get this up in here. I'm removing our dates because we did things a little bit different. We had a conference in which sort of took us off schedule, rolling into this new session. But I'm so happy to see the numbers that we have. We want you all to get the certificate, at least that it says, you know, you went through this process of learning, and hopefully you get as much as you can get out of it. Like I said, this is our 11th session, and I've done all of them. Initially, we started with just this course, and now we also have the health course, and I think there are going to be others joining us. So you will enjoy it, and I do try to answer, and at least address most of what is on our plates and are of concern to us in real time as you're on the ground, okay? So most of the people in this course are ambassadors. And so you are utilizing a lot of this information. This is the information that you should be grounded in terms of doing the work that you are doing. Okay, so nobody has questions for me before I get started? Are the earlier sessions of Booker T. Washington? Okay, hi from Liberia. Are the earlier sessions on Booker T. Washington? Okay, so no, I addressed Damani, I addressed I think you're kind of referring to the book that I wrote, Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist, that it's actually here. So I actually give you some chapters of this I give you some chapters of this book in the course. And so I have not yet covered it. It's coming up. It's actually in the first several, it's actually addressed in the first couple of sessions, because I start with a chapter in here on Pan-Africanism. And so, so no, you have not missed that. And in the previous sessions, I don't know what they put on Facebook. It's funny because as long as I've been doing this for the last year plus, we're past the year, I have not looked at the Facebook sessions, and I'm not really a fan of looking at myself. So I'm in the moment, I'm present, I'm 110% here. So I don't really go to the past except for to invoke history as professionally and otherwise, right? Like, but I don't go back and look at the sessions. So You would have to write admin about seeing that, but you're going to get it in real time here. Okay. I actually cover all the material that you're talking about. No, where else that I know of, it deals with Booker T. Washington as a Pan-Africanist and in the context of Pan-African history, except for my book. And I'm not trying to say that in like any kind of egotistical way, because it's not a popular position, right? It has become something that people are interested in, but it was politically and professionally for someone like me and for other scholars. Nobody, well, let me not say someone like me. I am probably the only scholar, not probably, I am the only scholar to even touch the conversation of Booker T. Washington being a Pan-Africanist and lay down the history about it, because he was largely untouchable. Okay, you know, white scholars, white liberal scholars, and passive Black scholars allowed Washington to be maligned in the history. Okay, and what I did very early in my career is go back and reclaim that. Like, no, this is not correct. Okay, and exhumed all of that history. It's not a popular position. When I was still in grad school and I was in the early stages of what would eventually become, not necessarily the book, but some of the early stages of that research, just the topic alone to put Washington's name in the same sentence as Pan-Africanism or Pan-Africanist would cause an uproar in academic audiences. You know, people want to fight. It's funny. Now, of course, I'm the researcher, so it doesn't move me that way. And I am grounded in the history. Side note, I am a Tuskegee alumni. I know what Tuskegee is. I lived it. And I didn't become a historian or a history major later in life. I was a history major at Tuskegee, right? So I was who I should have been in that space to do that research, even at that time, even though I had no clue that decades later, I would write a book that would shift how people saw Booker T. Washington and reclaim just really our history, you know. Side note about that research, this book, is that, you know, as much as people may think that it's about Booker T. Washington, it's really about us, right? So what I'm actually doing here for I Love Black People is what I've done in that book, which is to tell a story and to give some understanding of how to best serve African people, Black people, okay? If Washington did not adequately serve African people and Black people, I would have nothing to say about him or anybody else, okay? Because my allegiance is to the masses of our people, not to any one individual, or nor am I like ever interested in, you know, the deification of any individual, or, you know, the personality cult that we, you know, typically get involved in. If you served us well, then yeah, I'm going to retell the story, or make sure that that way and how you served us not only lives on, but can be modeled, so that we can more effectively serve our people, a people who so disproportionately around the world don't get what they need, right? So that's my thing with the Booker T. Washington. So I'm going to take more questions, and you forced me to, you know, that question kind of forced me into a little bit of my own bio, but yes, I'm a Tuskegean. I graduated undergrad from Tuskegee University. I got a Bachelor of Science in History from Tuskegee, and so a lot of the stuff that I wasn't studying this particular thing, but I was certainly studying what's in the book, but I was certainly studying many things that I addressed that in the book while I was there, like the fact that Washington was the creator of the lynching files, which, you know, now when you see any image of lynching, it is coming from a collection put together, compiled by Booker T. Washington. Many people don't know that because he is the compiler of a massive collection of newspaper clippings and articles from across the nation from 1895 to 1915, the time of his death. And so most of the images that were captured of lynching were collected by him, and he began to map them and produce statistical data and all of this regarding it. he is notably someone who people felt like he did not speak out about lynching, but that was because he was doing something very different. You know, we don't all have to be the same. We play different roles. And Washington overwhelmingly was somebody who was moving very decisively and had the responsibility of keeping himself and a whole community of people, which I argue is a community of a sustainable African community, right? So, you know, so nonetheless, I was a history major at Tuskegee. I graduated, I come back to New York, where I'm originally from. I got a master's of arts in modern African history, where I studied independence struggles, the political history of Africa. Specifically, my area was the necessity of armed struggle in settler colonies, meaning mostly East Africa, but also a little West. We're going to talk about one at West African context, like Guinea-Bissau, where the people engaged in armed struggle. But that is my area of specialism or specialty or research area, which is around the political history and the history of independence movements and liberation struggles in Africa specifically. And then I went on to get my PhD in policy in the realm of public policy, which is political science. And I essentially study policy that impacts African populations around the world for the early part of my career. And I've been very, you know, I'm in the academy, but I've had like a lot of independent channels that I've been able to work through. And part of what I honed in on was taking complex policy jargon and information and really translating into the common language of the people so that we understand how policies are impacting the lives of African people here, there, everywhere, right? And so, you know, a lot of the work that I do in terms of publishing has been to address how policy impacts African people and putting it into a cultural and cultural and political context so that we can understand that, right? So very often that happens to us. So even the book on Booker T. Washington in Africa ends with 2 policy cases, which were designed to be harmful to African people. One, at least, was meant to be harmful to African people, and Washington was right there to debunk this particular policy. I'll tell you what it's called now. It's called the African Exclusion Measure, and it was designed to lock out anybody who is Black or African. Now, you see how they work? We are conversating, and I don't think we should not conversate about race and identity. But when the US government or some Western government wants to lock all of us out or marginalize all of us and have to call us by name, you know what they did? They said, anyone of the Black or African race. They're like, if you identify racially or if you identify with the culture, all of you are locked out. So, and that's a real policy, the real word, real verb, all of that, that's all real. And we'll talk about that in the context of, I share those two cases in the context of this course as we get, you know, midway the course, because it is important for us to know the specific history and how this country moved in terms of policy. So just to culminate what I was saying about the work that I do is basically look at policies that address and impact us and look at how they were resolved or thrown out or debunked. In the case of Washington, he's able to get these policies thrown out. And I encourage people, the point of me recalling the history is to say, hey, look at this blueprint, look at this model of how this was done, right? How we worked in to the advantage and the benefit of African people globally, right? Without having a xenophobic issues, right? Because certainly in the case of the African Exclusion Measure, like I said, we will discuss, Washington did not have the attitude that we're not going to allow African people from other places to come into the United States. He knew exactly what that policy was looking to do. It was looking to lock anybody from the African world or anyone who was identifiably Black out of the United States from 1915 on, in effect. And it passed in the Senate where it originated. And he it manages to move fast enough to get it thrown out in the Congress. and I tell you the story. I recall the story specifically, not via conjecture. I elevate the story straight from Washington's personal papers as he is communicating with various people on the issue. And I detail how he gets the case thrown out, how he debunks the measure. And yes, it would have changed the demographic in the United States, in our communities, completely. There would have not been, for those of you who are Barack Obama fans, there would not have been a Barack Obama. But more importantly, for people like me, the very next year, Marcus Garvey came into the United States. That would not have been possible. Okay. Jamaica was one of the places they call out specifically as having to want to lock out the African and Black people from that locale. But the measure was directed at people from the Caribbean, Central and South America who were identifiably Black and African, who today sometimes do not always identify as African. Almost nowhere in the Caribbean and Latin America do they say African whatever, a hyphenation, right? In the way that in the United States, we say African American. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the implication for us here is what we want it to be. But I will say, yes, it is a unique thing that in the United States, African people in America, some of us are still able to put our primary identity first, which is Africa. That's the way it is for me. Just like Nana Akua, I identify first and foremost as an African person, right? And for me, African is synonymous with human. Okay, so I don't want to identify with anything else first. Besides that, that being said, in this measure, the United States said, all of you, Black or African, no, right? And Washington is someone who said, no, you're not going to do that. I have a steady flow of students coming from the African continent. I got a steady flow of students coming from throughout the African world, and you won't stop it. Okay. And so he fights diligently. But yes, it changed the demographic in the Black community here. And this is why you would have a Marcus Garvey who came to the United States to see Tuskegee by invitation of Booker T. Washington. This is why he can come in the very next year in 1916. This is why, Du Bois, one of his ancestors, can come into the United States and he is produced here. This is why so many others who have Malcolm X, our beloved Malcolm X, whose mother's origins was in the Caribbean. This is why she can come here to the United States, and so on and so forth. All right, we can go on and on and on. And yes, like I said, notably Barack Obama, right? His father could not have come from Kenya had this measure in 1915 not been defeated by Booker T. Washington. Make no mistake about it. There would have been not even an opportunity, okay? And not saying this is the place where you want to be, but this is the place that we are still in struggle, right? We are still struggling. We are still absolutely Farrakhan, whose background and his ancestors are from the Caribbean, right? He was a calypso singer for many years, true to his roots. And so yes, all of those individuals would not have been able to come here and contribute. And most of them are people who contributed to our struggle, right? For respect of our humanity. So anyway, but that in short is some of the work that I have done and continue to do. And so I'm always happy to do the work that I'm doing for I Love Black People. I think that's all I want to say about me, right? Because I kind of intertwined it with like what we're doing here, right? Sort of what we're going to cover here. And, so that's it. I'm ready to share documents. And while I do that, I'm going to also read some of your comments. I'm going to keep our session relatively short, only because what I want to start out with sharing that with you all, the syllabus, and I want to start out sharing the film, right? Which, the film is not, the film is in YouTube, so it's not a secret film or anything like that. But for a couple of sessions in teaching this, I never used to share. I never shared the film. I usually use that in the academic sense, in the context of the university. And so it occurred to me at one point, maybe sometime at the end of last year, like, why am I not using this in the context of I love Black people? This is what this should be common knowledge. Okay, there are things that I feel should be common knowledge so that we can elevate the conversation, not just in classrooms, but in the world, right? And so, you know, that this particular, sure, okay. This particular film elevates that conversation. And we know, like, you know, Spencer Wells is not, is the end all, the be all, right? And I'm gonna start the video with you all so that you can jump in there. But he's not the end all, the be all or anything like that. We're just utilizing him for the information, right? And when you're saying like, who is Spencer Wells? Spencer Wells is the person, the geneticist who's in this film that I'm gonna share, conducting this DNA research, okay? So hold on one second. And I will, like I said, I'll be this is devoid of exact dates only because I had to change some things and then I'll still revise it. But it's only 4 sessions, right? Including this one. And I hate that. I wish it was longer because, you know, usually this first session is spent usually this first session is spent answering, you know, some basic questions about the course and going over what the course is about, okay? And so let me just share that for a second, okay? You might not see me, I don't know. You might not see me for a second. So I'm going to open up. Or actually, no, you won't see me for a second. Because I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up the document and share that. So one moment on the visuals, okay? Okay. It always gives me a hard time. So let's see, did it do it? All right. It did one. 1 second, folks. Okay, did 2. Those of you who are in the group, you should see it right now. The syllabus. Okay, So I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'm going to let you see me again, and then I'm going to share my screen. So that we can deal with the content. Yvonne, do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm sharing this sharing this actually on my phone, even though I'm on the computer at the same time. So folks should be able to see that. Can everyone see that? The
Yes, we can
document?
see.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, wonderful. So just to get into the course description, which is, so the course is Introduction to Pan-African History and Organizing. And the course description is, and there are certain things I have to like abbreviate or just adjust first per se, but this is the course description, an introduction to Pan-African history and organizing, an ideological developing course that surveys the history of Pan-Africanism as a theory and practice. The course is structured to examine and engage in a critical analysis of the theories and practices of Pan-Africanism as both a political and ideological impetus for organizing African people globally. The course begins with the historical foundations of Pan-Africanism at the turn of the 20th century as a budding concept in the African diaspora and the Americas. It becomes the impetus for international organizing in Europe, the first Pan-African Conference, and finds its highest expression in Africa as a liberation struggle for the total independence of the African continent. Many question the measurable results produced by Pan-Africanism. This course explores this idea and qualifies the practices and production of Pan-Africanism and the measurable gains of African people for African people globally by examining policy cases, conference resolutions, and the implementation of the ideology as African nationalists and the masses of people on the ground express it. And so this is a big issue because a lot of people, shun or have a problem with Pan-Africanism because they always say like, oh, well, what did it produce for us? Or what did, and I always sort of chuckle at that idea because I am someone who defines in concrete terms what the concept of Pan-Africanism, what the ideology, the theory, practice of Pan-Africanism has actually done for us. So, I can appreciate that question, but I also can appreciate the answer because I do know the answer. I teach the answer, and I actually can tell you in measurable ways what Pan-Africanism has produced for us beyond a feel-good type of energy or a feel-good feeling, so to speak. It has actually produced something more of substance than that, right? So I'm always happy to have that conversation because it's right in line with the work that I do. It is measurable. We can weigh and measure it. We can look at the substance of it, all right? Because there is, and there has been, and there always has been, and we hope there continues to be action attached to it that enhances and actually does something of substance in terms of the condition, right, of African people globally, right? And yes, that means Black people, right? So introductory lecture of Pan-African, and that's today, right? Introductory lecture, Pan-African history and organizing. Now, what's coming up is right here, week 1. You'll be reading Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of Pan-Africanists. So that is the book that someone was writing about in the chat. Yes, I am the author of the book. I will not be sharing the entire book, but I will be sharing critical chapters from the book, which are that chapter right there, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. I am not using that because necessarily because it's my book per se, but I'm using it because of the fact that I want to visit a time where I can conjure the context, right? Like, so if someone is to tell you about 2021, 2020, you would have to start telling them all the things that were going on at the same time simultaneously that created a climate, the context, right? The energy at that moment in time, what was happening in the world, what was the climate, what were the conditions that people were responding to. So this chapter, what I did was I put a lot of energy into recreating the context, what was happening throughout the African world at that moment in time that the term Pan-Africanism emerges. And I not only recall that history, but I recreate that climate in that chapter so that you can understand that Pan-Africanism was a production. It actually was a Pan-African production in the sense that you had contributions from African people throughout the African world contributing to what would be Pan-Africanism as a concept and a tangible thing. And so that is your first chapter that you will read this week. I see I took the Journey of Man and Genetic Odyssey off of there, but that's because that is like your prerequisite information. So I will still be sharing that even though you don't see it on here, and I'll adjust that and add it. So, you know, that is the first chapter that you will read, along with a discussion and relevant materials related to the first Pan-African conference in 1900, right? And what the definition, bare bones, budding definition of Pan-Africanism is, which is unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression, racism globally. Pan-Africanism as an ideology and the historical context through which it emerged, right? So that's what we'll be talking about next session. And so you'll be reading the relevant materials this week. So every week is just like that pretty much. The next week I do use another chapter from that book, The Liberian Crisis and the African Exclusion Measure. Basically, I just jump to the chapters which qualify the actions, right? I told you about the African exclusion measure, but then I also share the Liberian crisis, where yes, Booker T. Washington plays a key role in sustaining Liberia through the crisis of being annexed, taken by imperialist forces on the ground in Africa, specifically the French and the British. So you know, that's what happens there in the next week following this one, okay? And then we start to talk about his Pan-African affiliations, because Washington is educating, but he is being educated, okay? There's a number of things, a litany of things. One of the things I do with this book, in particular, Booker T. Washington after the making of Pan-Africanism, is I talk about the transformative variables and factors in Washington's life. I think it's something that we don't do enough as African people. I think it's something that we're too sensitive to do, okay? And, you know, so we feel like if we say anything that doesn't immediately read as positive about an African person or a Black person, that we're destroying them or we're trashing them or that. No, all of our lives signify. Yeah, all of our lives are cautionary tales to one extent or another, or tales of victory, okay? Evidence of victory. The truth of the matter is that all of us undergo transformation. Hopefully we undergo transformation for the better, and to an extent that we can come out on the other side and serve not only ourselves, but many other people. Well, I talk about very candidly Washington's transformation, where he goes from being someone who does not have the kind of African consciousness that is going to be useful to us, to having the type of African consciousness that is going to be useful to us. And what are the factors that force that transformation? To him actually being in position and having the consciousness to act on our behalf globally. just in the context of the United States. This is really more an internationalist type of understanding and endeavor that he engages in. He is fighting for African people globally, not solely for African people in the United States. Where did he get that from? What is that? What fostered that? And I told, to some extent, in that chapter 4, Booker T. Washington, Africa, Booker T. Washington and his African nationalist affiliates, I explain how he undergoes this transformation. I explained the low points, like the Togo expedition. And then I explained, how he comes out on the other side of that. One of my theoretical understandings in terms of how to approach history is that, we cannot claim the victories if we're not willing to admit the failures. Okay. And so I do that in this particular work, and you actually get a chance to read a couple of those chapters. So that's all I'll say about that. But it is important to talk about our transformation internally and externally in terms of how it gets us to a place to be more efficient in serving our people. One of our problems here, in particular in the United States, on that issue is that we don't talk about our transformation, where someone went from being maybe looking like they're useful to us, but being useless and actually working against us in many spaces in their own personal lives and things of that nature, having unbelievable contradictions, and then how they transform those themselves and resolve those contradictions. We don't like to talk about that here. And so it robs future generations and current generations of prescription and instruction repeatedly, so like the easy one is like, I've given an example of like Martin Luther King, who had some issues clearly on a personal level with women, right? Personal level in terms of womanizing, and then on a political level in the sense that in his inner circle, he refused, although Ella Baker was the real key organizer, he refused to have any women visible in his leadership. Okay, although it was a woman who was undergirding everything that he did on a national level, right? She was always a national organizer and trainer of the people who were involved in non-direct protest and nonviolent direct protests, and it was brutal. That being said, he transforms himself from one point, saying to people like Maya Angelou, I don't want to work with you, to telling her, come back from Africa, I'm ready to work with you. He undergoes a transformation. We can't get the benefits of that transformation when our people struggle around misogyny, chauvinism, all of that. We can't get the benefits of what that transformation was from King, because we are so fragile and sensitive, we can't even talk about it, right? Like, don't talk about him. These white folks, listen, they're looking over your shoulder anyway. How we give instruction to the next generation is key. Let them do what they do, and let us do what we do. Okay. And I'm hoping that, people like me and others who are not afraid to talk about our contradictions and give prescription about how to resolve resolve those things and overcome those things, get further, meaning that we, becomes a common conversation, right? And I owe that for myself to the political organization that I was in. I was in an organization called the All African People Revolutionary Party, which you will talk about, one of the founders and the ideological fathers of that. And here, contradictions are the opportunity to resolve issues, opportunity to improve oneself. And what I do with Washington in the context of talking about Pan-Africanism is I uncover some of his contradictions, and he engages in some contradictory behavior at one point or another. And however, he does what some of us are afraid to do. He resolves it. He resolves it very quickly. And when the moment comes for him to be in the position to serve us globally, internationally, he is neither afraid or ill-equipped to do so, because he has repositioned himself and understands exactly how to do that, because he's resolved those contradictions. that he actually had. Whether personally or ideologically, he is able to resolve them in a way that is beneficial to us and results in the defeat of the African exclusion measure, but also results in the victory in the Liberian crisis, okay, where he's able to secure Liberia and stop it from being annexed from the front by the French, British, and very likely the German colonial forces on the ground in Africa. So, you know, we spend week 2 talking about issues like that. And then week 4, we talk about, you know, other philosophical people who, you know, proponents of the philosophy of Pan-Africanism, like Du Bois, like Garvey, and others, and the various conferences, the congresses, as they emerge in 1919, all the way up to 1945. And then we get to what should be really the climax, the crescendo of what it's all about. We can talk about Pan-Africanism in the diaspora, but we should understand that Pan-Africanism largely is international endeavor, and that the biggest stakes are on the African continent, where we fight for the independence and liberation of African nations. And Nkrumah is the first to say that, you know, independent African nations ultimately is not enough. We want continental unity, and which is the highest expression of Pan-Africanism, a unified continent of African nations. And essentially an Africa that works to the interests, the best interests of African people, and an Africa that benefits African people first and foremost than it does the rest of the world, which is unfortunately what we're still struggling against, right? An Africa who produces or is robbed and exploited to the benefit of other people long before it is allowed to produce and secure to the benefit of African people right on the continent and its children scattered about the world, right? So Nkrumah articulates that, and in week 5, and I don't know if I might have to conflate week 4 and 5 because of the time, but then maybe we'll just go over a session in the last one. But I cover a number, not just of theoreticians and or proponents of Pan-Africanism, but I cover the organized bodies through which we advance our Pan-African interests, right? So the organized bodies that emerge in the form of the Pan-African Congresses, as the emergence of the Organization of African Unity, and the more contemporary organizations that may or may not be living up to serving the interests of African people, which are the African Union, I hate to say, and other entities, right? But we covered those people and, you know, the proponents of Pan-Africanism, their philosophies, the nuances of their philosophies, like Amilcar Cabral, okay, who gives instruction and prescription how a people who are so diverse, how we can come together and forge unity in the face of a common struggle. The role of history and the role of culture as weapons for liberation, tools for liberation. And of course, Nkrumah obviously speaking to the need for a union government in Africa, and of course, the declaration and resolution of the first Conference of Independent African States, and as well as some resolutions from both the 1919 all the way up to the 1945 Congresses, which are initiated by none other than W.E.B. Du Bois, who had a vision and had, thank goodness, the consciousness to say, to create another body, to continue the work that would be a think tank on the African continent for African leadership. Because just for me to point, I just want to point out, Du Bois is the sole survivor of the 1900 conference, okay, that we start here talking about. Du Bois is the last one standing from the first Pan-African Conference. By 1919, everyone who attended that conference except for Du Bois is deceased, is an ancestor. So not only is he a sole survivor, but he has the vision and he's able to execute the mission. Okay, that's the basic thing right there. Hold on one second. I'm gonna stop this because I wanna, there are some of the points there that I wanted to add, and okay. Yeah, I want to, all right, let me just take myself off camera real quick because I wanna, that's not the complete gist of the syllabus, and I just realized something about that. Okay, so let me do something really quickly here. I want to go over the objectives. There are a lot of objectives here, and I'm going to read those to you or show those to you, and I'm going to get back to some of your questions and comments, and then we're gone, right? Because I know for me, you'll come to see I can be long-winded. So 1 second, let me just let me just find it and open it up for you all. Okay, it should have been in the latter part of that document, but I'm not sure why it wasn't. So this week you will have a chapter to read. Okay, for some reason I don't see it there. This week you will have the Booker T. Washington Pan-Africanism chapter to read, along with the film to watch. Okay, where is this? Sorry folks, for a second. I'm just perplexed about something. Something I posted is missing. Well, Yvonne, while I look for this correction, can you just read me some of the questions? Because I can't do both at the same time, but I can, my mouth is working and my brain is working double time. So I don't want to lose time because I can't read them. I'm scrolling through something else to make sure that I give you the course objectives, which should have been on there. Okay. You can, however any questions that I haven't answered or you see appearing in there.
There are only comments.
Oh, okay. Okay, no questions. Okay, folks.
No questions.
All right. Let me just go to something else. Let me see the archives. Okay. All right. So what I'm about to do is just try to put the objectives on here, which for some reason I don't know why they're not on that one I just sent, but they should have been. So there's a glitch and error on my end. I apologize. But there are a lot of them, so I don't want to be haphazard in recalling them for you. Also, let me just say this. I try to use as much visual as possible, so I will be sharing quite a bit of films, quite a few films in the course. So, because I like to give some context, right? Like I like to give like the information, but I also like to give you some understanding of how it played out, right? Okay. All right, good, I got it. So there's only comments. All right, so I can't wait to see the comments, but here we go. All right, so I'm gonna share one more time. So you will see this. Okay, so here we go. Learning outcomes. A working definition of Pan-Africanism, knowledge of its specific history, development and emergence as an ideology, theory, and practice in the world, the ability to identify and qualify Pan-Africanist thought, speech, and action across various technological mediums, social media platforms, virtual realities, and brick and mortar spaces. The ability to qualify, 3 is the ability to qualify whether policies, legislation, organizational initiatives, and or general practices are Pan-Africanist in nature and beneficial to African and Black people. 4, the ability to identify imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism as oppressive and exploitative systems as they have manifested throughout the African world, Africa and its diaspora. 5, the means and methods through which African and Black people have organized, fought, resisted, and liberated themselves and nations from imperialism, colonialism, and the ways in which neocolonialism is currently being resisted. 6, the role of Pan-Africanism as a primary strategy and tactic in the effort to eliminate racism and xenophobia. 7, the ability to differentiate multiple perspectives through an analysis of different case studies built on unmeasured evidence-based arguments and research essays. 8, the ability to apply the knowledge acquired in this seminar to the active role and responsibility of ambassadors of I Love Black People in eradicating racism and xenophobia. 9, the ability to qualify again, everything before declaring it substantial or beneficial to African Black people locally and globally. Okay. And 10, develop, I got all this stuff popping up on my screen, develop a measurable results orientation regarding business practices and services, policy, and political agendas, legislative initiatives, organizational efforts, and institutional practices. Okay, so we want to see that the measurable results are good for African people, good for Black people, right? Because we love Black people. We don't want to be confused when we weigh and measure what this produces for us, right? On the what in terms of the bottom line. Then the seminar themes are quite simple: Pan-Africanism, which is unity as the primary organizing tool, weapon, strategy for eradicating racism and xenophobia against African and Black people. 2, the historical role, importance, and use of the dialectical relationship. So the conversing relationship, I talk about this a lot, right? So this is an age-old thing that we've been doing, meaning conversing back and forth, even before internet and social media and all of this. You'll see in Washington's time, African people are communicating from the continent to the US and the Americas to the Caribbean, all around the African world. There are serious networks and dialectical conversations going on back and forth, and we are sharing information about our condition and strategizing around how to be victorious in these situations. What we are doing today is not new. We have been doing this since we have had this issue of white supremacy and culture. And we have been strategizing and coming together. So we are also in line in the tradition and on a continuum with this work that we're doing in I Love Black People. And that's one of the things, biggest things that you should learn. You're not alone in what you're trying to do. You are on a continuum. So invoke your ancestors. Read some history to inspire you to move forward and forge ahead, because the struggle is continuous, right? So the historical role, importance, and use of the dialectical, conversing, discourse, sharing relationship between African and Black people globally as an effective strategy and tactic in combating white supremacy, racism, and xenophobia, which is a global pandemic. Synthesizing and application of Pan-Africanist thought, speech, and action in everyday scenarios and challenges. For the role of education, specifically history, in eliminating ignorance, divisiveness, propaganda, and individualism against African and Black people in the effort to achieve Pan-Africanism unity. Global Pan-Africanism, the unification of African people for the purpose of eradicating exploitation and oppression, racism, is a direct solution to the condition of African and Black people, okay? And so those are some of the, items in terms of the learning outcomes and the themes that we are going to be engaging in the course of this semester. Well, it's not a semester, I'll say it's a cycle, right? Because it's way too short. So we're like 4 weeks. We get like 4 weeks to execute all of that, which is a lot. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, comments, because I'm pretty sure that I'm over, and I'm always happy to be last because, I like being last. I get to bring up the end and, add anything that needs to be added. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you. And so those things will be added to the syllabus. You'll see them added to it along with the film. Generally, I post the materials on like Monday nights for the week that we are in, right? So we have our session on Saturday. I post the materials. All the materials are posted by Monday night, whether it's videos or the readings. And then we are supposed to discuss during the course of the week. I'm going to try to engage more, so maybe do some voice messages in the group and stuff in order to stimulate the conversation around the readings, what we're actually reading. And then we have the lecture for that particular reading on that Saturday, okay? And then we move to the next topic. Racism practiced all over Britain, but it is done very subtly and sneaky so that yes, I've heard that about the British. Right, and I mean, like, let's not disconnect them, right? So the Americans are just the peasant, the underclass of British society, right? That's who the colonists were, the underbelly, the peasant class of British society. And so they are all equally racist in practice. The British are very peculiar. They are late to engage in the slave trade, but when they do, they are masters of it, masters of colonization, masters of trading and buying flesh, human flesh. And then they somehow get a little hip to the fact that how anti-human this is, even though they don't necessarily stop, and then become the police of all the other European groups and start to act like as if they're above the pathology of racism. It's such nonsense. I'm hearing a lot about Black people talking about moving to Europe to get away from racism in America. And I had to say to them, like, are not the Dutch racist? Are not the British and the French racist? I mean, just because James Baldwin went to France doesn't mean that France isn't racist. Do you know what the French have done in this world? Okay, nobody has more colonial territories than the French or British. And what they have done to their people. Read Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. The French took committing atrocities to a whole nother level, So I don't know, our people, we have work to do around some of our delusion with Europeans, but when they're in the house, they're the most vehemently racist, okay? They're most comfortable with being racist. So you're right, sister. I agree totally with you, Victoria. Yeah. I also play a radio mode Pan-African stuff. Well, you'll see how how Rastafari comes about, because I briefly cover a little bit of that history. Rastafari is very interesting. It's really more, the trajectory is more one direction than the other, right? Like, so it doesn't come back out into the world and eradicate our oppression and exploitation, but it constitutes itself as a particular philosophy. The reason why people in Jamaica in particular could call themselves Rastafari is because none other than Marcus Garvey will master only one industry, and I'll get into that, right? And why I'm saying only one industry as opposed to multiple industries. Because he was seeking to model it after the Tuskegee model that had 44 industries. And that's not my position, that's not my opinion. That is their direct correspondence, which you'll get in this book, in the Booker T. Washington book. But he mastered the only industry that allowed him to organize the African world. So what other industry did he need to master other than the printing press? And he did that. And he produced a paper called The Negro World, which was the key tool in organizing the African world. And so this is how African people in Jamaica know about the coronation of Rastafari, because it is featured on the cover of The Negro World. And yes, while in Jamaica, Garvey will tell you himself in the chapter we're going to read on Pan-Africanism, while he suffered a lot of rejection from people in Jamaica about his vision and mission for African unity, somehow some people did hear his prophecy, or did accept his prophecy that there would be someone who would come from the East that would bring redemption to African people. And in seeing Haile Selassie, Rastafari, his coronation as emperor of Ethiopia, people essentially say that this is the person, right, who is the embodiment. He is the person who will come and bring redemption to African people. You know, so I'll leave it at that. But Rastafari does not come back out of Jamaica and, you know, engage in any liberatory process as a constituted group. Hopefully they identify, but, you know, we'll get into, you know, philosophical lines and stuff like that, right? It is Pan-Africanist to a certain extent, but I think it's a little too pan-human in the sense that the Rastafari line tends to embrace Europeans in the way that it embraces all of humanities. And, you know, that's all well and good, but Europeans don't embrace African people who are the humans the way they embrace other Europeans, right? So we want to love ourselves and our own first, right, before anyone else, you know. And we can speak love all we want, you know, but we need to put that in action with each other first, right? So thank you. Who is this? Denise. Oh, hi, Denise. What's up? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you read the book and everything. And I know we covered it. I talk about it. Yes, they definitely do try to compartmentalize Booker T. Washington. Okay. Yeah, Nicole, I don't doubt that. The whole thing with Cuba specifically was used as a space to season. There's a moving map that shows how many ships that come to the Western Hemisphere go straight to Cuba, and we are separated, the well from the ill, and then resold sometimes up to America and throughout the Caribbean. Okay, the least of the ships from Africa come to the continental United States. Okay, most of the ships that come from the continent of Africa go to the Caribbean and South America, which is why there's such irony in how people colonized by the Iberians, the Portuguese, and the Spaniards process their African identity. You know, sure, we want you to get to Black, but we hopefully you get to being African first, okay? Because everybody in the world knows that Africa is a source of power, but us. The Chinese, next to Europeans, I don't think anybody is more potently racist than the Chinese. I'm just going to keep it real. They're all over Africa. When I was living in Senegal, they already had have come to Senegal and were buying land and things of that nature. I'm just going to be very blunt. They hate us. They hate us. But they know that to move into the from the 21st century and beyond, they're going to have their hands in Africa to survive. Everybody knows that but us, which is the irony, And so we need to get with the program. Africa is the seat of our power. It's the seat of our liberation. If you don't know that, you don't know anything. Mainly because that is literally and figuratively what it is. Youngest population on Earth, 1.4 billion people, most of which are under 30 or in their 30s. So significantly younger than the rest of the world. 2, a bulk of the world's resources. Yeah, there's resources on the equator, but with a concentration in Africa, specifically the Congo and the 9 surrounding countries. Also, the fastest growing entrepreneurship, meaning intellectual property, growing in the world. If you're not connected to Africa, you won't see tomorrow. In America, 60% of the population, 60% of the population, and let me not say 60%, majority of the white population, which is 75% of the country, is 60 years or older. So let me say it another way. America is predominantly white. Okay, that's 75% of the population. They are 60 years old and older. Majority, they're 75%, 60 years old or older. Okay, 20 years changes the whole dynamic. Africa, majority of the population, 1.4 billion, 1.4 to 5 billion people. Majority of the population is 30 years old or younger. In spite of what they tried to do, right? With diseases, biological warfare, essentially all of that, in spite of it all. And holders of the bulk of the world's resources, the Congo and the 9 surrounding countries. So, we can be estranged from Africa all we want, but it's gonna shape how we go into the future, right? Let me just take a couple of comments. One way for Africa can move forward is by breaking relationships with. Of course, absolutely. We don't want to be, exploited. Well, I hope, Victoria, not. I hope not, right? We need to move with a little more consciousness. No, the book is not on Amazon. Can administrators share the link for the book? It's a website for the book. I took the book off Amazon because Amazon makes the book too expensive. It might go back up because I have there's another revised and expanded version of the book coming out. So I want to get rid of the older copies, so to speak. Even though that's the copy to have because it's a little more raw in the sense that I address some things. I address the academy and the academy's African scholars who have allowed European and white scholars to have a monopoly on Washington and our history and interpreting him, so. You can believe Arinda. You can believe integration can help solve African problems. I don't know what kind of integration you mean, but I don't know. Tell me what kind of integration do you mean? Thank you, Dr. Ray. You're welcome. Thank you. I believe African. I believe African now. Sure, we've been enslaved mentally. Yes, I mean, so we liberated our bodies in the United States. We come here as human beings who under this legal system are legally reduced to chattel property. We fought a war here. I don't know if people understand that, but in the United States, we fought a war. That was called the Civil War. What we get out of that war is that we end the institution, we meaning Africans, because Europeans never cared to end the institution of slavery. We forced that to an end. And what we get out of that deal is the liberation of our bodies. Our bodies, once again, belong to us. What we didn't get is, reclamation of our minds, right? After 250 years of enslavement, the mental bondage. So that's why people like myself and many others do the work that we do, to liberate our minds, right? So that we can be whole again, right? Most of us have lost our righteous African minds over here. Just gonna be real. Most of us are out of our righteous African minds. And I'm not saying everything African is good. That's why I said righteous, right? The best aspects of who we are, the best of what it means to be African in various contexts, right? So we want to reclaim that. And the best always means the most human to me, right? The best means what respects our humanity on every level. That's what the best means to me. The best doesn't mean white, right? Africans have, this is true. The best does not mean white to me. The best means what is respectful of my humanity, right? I am located in New York. Yeah. Yeah, Lasana, I see that. Right. I know about the school in Liberia. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, somebody named G left, but thank you. I need a little bit more understanding of what you're saying, Roland. I see your question. What proposal can we suggest to Seattle settle all anger? France needs to pay and withdraw economically. They need to pay and they need not benefit going forward. Those are the demands, you know. Let me just say this, it's never going to be an easy thing when people who have scarcity, I think we don't really have a good understanding of the world in the sense that, I'm talking about us African people, that European survival is dependent on the domination of Africa and African people. I'm going to discuss this at length, this idea that no one is invested in our unity. There are a lot of people who are invested, but in the wrong way in our unity. They're invested in our disunity. And we think that our struggle is fighting them. Our true struggle is achieving unity, because unity, the ability to move as a block wherever we are, it insulates us. Right? This is a age-old issue. We think that our job is to fight like these other people. No, our struggle is to fortify our unity. And, our unity becomes a shield, an impenetrable shield with regard to other people and the things that they attempt to do to us collectively, to destabilize us and to discredit our humanity in our lives. So, we're going to talk a lot more about that, because it's a classic thing, and sometimes it's complex, so I can't just always in one sitting explain it adequately or engage in brief discourse and explain what exactly we have to understand on a larger conceptual scale about the world and about our position in it, right? And how we have to move, right? Sometimes our internal struggles may look like chaos, but it is us forging unity, okay? Like, so for example, I'll get to specific cases where we can exemplify that, like Guinea-Bissau, where, Amilcar Cabral explains that he recognizes the ethnic diversity of the people there. Before this first time, they will come together and struggle against the Portuguese, and it will allow them to forge unity amongst themselves, struggling side by side and together against a common opposer, oppressor, enemy. We don't understand sometimes that, you know, the struggles we go through internally, we need to be very committed to those struggles, more committed to those struggles than fighting those outside, because we establish unity right here. It automatically protects us from what is outside. You know, so I'm not going to get too deep into that right this second, but there are other ways of looking at things than we have looked at them before, you know, and of course. Exactly, I agree. So I'm going to close up. Oh yeah, so we can talk about that. I do get into that conversation, how to address, well, not in the way you think, but how to, yes, how to qualify behavior, because sometimes we're not able to address issues that will go against us, work against our best interest because the people look like us under neocolonialism, right? And this is why, so just a quick answer, this is why I stress qualifying everything, and then qualifying it again. You know, so your question, even though I've heard the same question many times, I get you. I feel what you are asking and why you are asking that, because everywhere we are in the world, we have many people who look like us and do not serve our interests. And then people will try to guilt us into not stating that those people are betraying our people. That's not our job, to support people who are enemies of African people, who betray the people. Our job is to qualify, go with the substance of things, right? And so we do have to out those people. We don't owe them anything. When you betray our people, and this is why I started out with talking about Booker T. Washington, I said, a lot of people think that I'm, you know, this is an ode to the man, the personality, you know, because we love personality cults, particularly out here and everywhere we are. However, that's not what this is. This is about a person who was a servant to our people and served our people well. And so when we start to qualify leadership and people in those positions, we need to take the emphasis off of who they are and put the emphasis on who they serve. And if we get what we want in terms of qualifying who they served and how effectively they serve the people, then that is how we put value on that leadership, okay? Not just on the individual person because we like their hair or whatever, or, you know, like here in the United States, Obama was the first Black president, you know, but just Black. He didn't, you know, he betrayed African and Black people in the United States for the most part. He did nothing to protect our lives still in the midst of a deathlock of a struggle around our human value. Okay, we're getting killed in the streets by extensions of the state, and he's afraid to say, I'm going to do something in protection of this particular group of people's lives. And then you see Biden come and put the Asian hate bill out in weeks, you know. So we've always got to, we owe nothing to people who could care less about our lives. We don't need to cover for them. We need to out them. The people who in the substantive ways serve African people, that's who belong to us. That's who we serve, and they serve us likewise. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Politicians, neo-colonialism in the highest level, at the highest level. I don't know what you mean by racist, and that's why, Arinda, that's why I don't know about, right, so all races, so that's why we're gonna watch The Journey of Man and Genetic Odyssey. This idea, this construct of race is not really real. But I don't know if you're talking about the African people, Black people, if that's what you're saying, and then like the Arab and then the European. Listen, I don't know about unifying with Europeans or anything like that. I'm so more concerned about African people, right? Like we are the ones who get in the short end of the stick everywhere we are, right? And certainly on the African continent, the African person should come second to no one, not the Arab, not the European. Okay, in getting their material needs met. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to go too deep before we go into I don't want to go into territories that we're gonna get to later on. Right, we can't unite with people who are oppressing us. I mean, I don't know. There's, you know, anyway. Right. Okay, so let me go. It was a pleasure, and I will be seeing you all next week. And I will be putting the film up, The Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey. That should get us all to the same page around this issue of race and culture, right? So that, you know, it'll lift all of our ships up in understanding the difference between race and the difference between culture in terms of African people and Black people, right? And I didn't see any of the questions about race and culture that were coming up before, but okay, you know, I'm still open to them. We can talk about them next time. Yes, of course, African leadership owes it to us as people, as African people, to sit down and resolve the issues and produce in Africa where African people benefit most, right? And not the least. Okay, thank you very much, Elijah. We will be seeing each other and we'll be talking. I look forward. You guys are a very lively group. And so groups, because I don't know how many, I think I'm at 246, somewhere around 600 people in not in the WhatsApp right now, but in this session, it looks like, right? So maybe 160 and then 2 something, and then the other one, I'm not sure, like another 200. So we have a big group, but the materials will be going up probably before Monday night, but as of Monday night, and you'll see this revision of the syllabus. You'll see the objectives go up before then, so that you can have all of that in one place, okay? I am because we are, and we'll be talking. So our job is to talk well as we're reading the materials during the course of the week. So I'm going to really be on top of that because you all are on top of the subject matter. Okay. All right. I am because we are.
Thank you very much. I am because we are.
Thank you. Bye-bye.